Yes, yes, and Jeff's coming.
Well, yeah, and I'm talking about lower income people.
And I sent it to both.
And with that, trees around the house.
Well, I'm not talking about
It'll be a little bit more.
they weren't really amendments. They were revisions. Did you see that amendment?
It is 6 p.m. The June 30th, 2025 session of the City of Eau Claire Plan Commission is called to order. If anyone in our audience wants to speak tonight, please complete a public hearing contact form located at the back table and give it to one of our planners at the front table. I will ask that everyone turn your cell phones off or to silent mode. I will call the attendance roll. Commissioner Erickson.
Here.
Commissioner Lawson.
Here.
Commissioner Leonard.
Here.
Commissioner Reed.
Here.
Commissioner Zoid.
Here.
and Commissioner Helgeson, the chair, is present. We do have a quorum.
I did.
Commissioner Brewster.
Present.
Yes, sorry. We do have a quorum with 7 members present. I will read our standard introductory statement for how we conduct business at our meetings. During tonight's meeting, Plan Commission members will be participating in person to deliberate and take action on the agenda items before us. The Plan Commission attempts to conduct its public hearings in a relatively informal manner within the constraint that we must deal with the issues before us in an orderly and business-like fashion. We give the applicant an opportunity to speak first, and then others are each permitted to speak either for or against the proposal. We do request that everyone restrict their comments to the issues before us, avoid unnecessary repetition, and be prudent in the use of time. We want to be sure that we have adequate time to deal as carefully with the last items on the agenda as with the first. If you wish to view, not comment, at tonight's meeting, it can be viewed through the live event link on the city's homepage under Public Notices and Meetings. This meeting is being recorded at the same location. We will move on to agenda item 3. Is the open public comment period for those agenda items that do not appear on tonight's agenda as a public hearing. Items number 5 and number 6 are noted as public hearings and have specific comment periods included during the discussion of those items. Item 7 will be a discussion amongst commissioners only. Item number 4, our consent agenda, which is a public discussion, is open for public comment at this time. Is there anyone here wishing to give public comment on agenda items 4 or any other comments not related to tonight's agenda? Anyone that would like to speak on the public discussions that's not on tonight's agenda, please come forward. And I will ask all speakers tonight to limit your time to 3 minutes in the interest of getting everybody in. We will be keeping time on the little diagram in front of this podium there. When the light turns yellow, you have 1 minute remaining. When it turns red, your 3 minutes are up. Please state your name and address and spell your last name.
Yes, my name is Jane Moeller, I'm here for the Chippewa Valley Biodiversity Project, which is just our office is on Barstow. And today I want to talk about the Jonah Affordable Housing Task Force, which wrote a letter to the committee or to the commission and highlighted the urgent need to remove unnecessary barriers to affordable housing, suggesting that the proposed Century Plan tree protection is too costly. And in response, the Chippewa Valley Biodiversity Partnership is now proposing a new targeted policy.
Ms. Moeller?
Yeah.
I think it might be better for you to speak during the public hearing when we go through the new ordinance.
Oh, okay.
I think that might
because
be,
it wasn't being specifically, that
yeah,
one was
you'll
not
get
being specifically
There'll
addressed.
be a comment period during
Okay,
during
alrighty.
that.
Thank
Yeah,
you. I
thank you.
apologize.
Thank you. Yeah, we just want to make sure you speak at the appropriate time. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on either the consent agenda or any other items not noted on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, we will close agenda item 3 and move on to our consent agenda, which is the approval of the June 16th, 2025 Plan Commission minutes. The entirety of the consent agenda will be acted upon by a single vote. Are there any commission members that have questions, comments, or would like to see any sub-item removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Lawson, a second by Commissioner Brewster. Any further discussion on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Commissioner Brewster.
Aye.
Commissioner Erickson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lawson.
Aye.
Commissioner Leonard.
Aye.
Commissioner Reed.
Aye.
Commissioner Zoig.
Aye.
And Commissioner Helgeson, the chair, votes aye. The consent agenda is approved by a 7-0 vote. Now we will move on to our regular agenda. Do we have a staff presenter tonight for the public hearing for the Century Code update. Mr. Noel.
Good evening, Plan Commission and Chair. We're pleased to present this evening a lot of hard work over the past 2+ years with the city, with the Zoning Advisory Policy Committee, yourselves, and also the city council members. So we have sort of a tag team approach tonight with our colleagues. We have Jackie Berg, our consultant with Housel Levine. We have Al Rinka, our deputy city engineer, to talk a little bit as well. I'm available. Our director, Aaron White, our attorney Herberson as well is available if you have any legal questions. So your staff is here for any questions. But we'll have a little bit different presentation in terms of the staff report that was in your packet, had a lot of linked items to be able to go to the LDO, the comprehensive plan amendment, which will be your second item. So we'll walk you through a lot of that different actions. So just to be clear about, since this action item is quite a bit, a little unusual from your current sort of projects, is item 5 includes Title 19 of the Municipal Code. This is an update. Engineer Rinka will explain more about why this was needed in the stormwater management section of the code. Then sort of the large bulk of the project is Titles 17 and 18, merging into a new Title 17, so repeal and replace by ordinance. Also a new zoning map based off of the new zoning districts that are created with the LDO. Then we also have a repeal of some different products that we use currently under code, and also different plan unit development overlays so that the LDO is more consistent. We've walked through this together through all those various ZPAC meetings, so that you should be familiar with it. But again, there's a lot of material, so if you have any questions, we're available to go through the finer details. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Engineer Rinka to go over a bit of an overview on Title 19.
Good evening, everyone. Yeah, this was a very big task. Engineering specifically got involved with this one because this relates highly to our department for development oversight. So with the stormwater ordinance, why did we have to amend it? Biggest one was DNR requirements. We had to get in line with the Department of Natural Resources. They provided us basically a model ordinance that we just almost copied and pasted, and we tweaked it to align with City of Eau Claire. This will also add simplicity and clarity. It'll make processes more streamlined for developers, and there's updated terminology for consistency with the new LDO. Was there one more slide there, Ned? What amendments are proposed? There are updates to construction site erosion control, post-construction stormwater management, illicit discharge detection and elimination. That was a real big one. On that one, we went from a small paragraph to about 12 pages of the new illicit discharge. Stormwater management guidelines are document. We had a stormwater management guideline. It was like a separate document. It was very tough to find. You had to really search the internet for it. We've incorporated all that language now into our ordinance, making it easier for the developers, engineers to find. And we now have a new land disturbance permit that it makes it easier to capture these smaller sites. Sometimes some of the smaller sites are kind of falling through the cracks, and we wouldn't always catch those, and now we are gonna those will be more apparent when the permits come through, so we don't miss out on those small sites. Any questions at the moment?
Questions for Mr. Rinka? Seeing none, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It's great to be in front of you on this day. Very exciting with all of our 2+ year process here. So I do have a pretty lengthy presentation going over the major proposed changes to the LDO. So please, if you have questions as I'm presenting, feel free to jump in as we go through all of the major changes. So you all know me. I'm Jackie Berg. I am the project manager from Halcyon Levine. Throughout this project, we also worked with Julie Beth Hines with Birchline Planning. She was heavily involved in the natural resource protection standards, the new landscape standards, tree preservation, et cetera. She's not with us this evening, but I will be presenting some of the content that she was more in charge of. So a real quick overview of the project process. So we started in the summer of 2023, had a lot of upfront engagement. Then we did an existing code analysis and preliminary recommendations. This is a report that we presented to the ZPAC and to the public, really just highlighting what our recommendations for the new code should be. We really stuck to that pretty well throughout this whole process, but of course with the feedback of the ZPAC, the feedback of the public, we have made some additions, some tweaks to those initial recommendations. Then in the winter and fall of 2024, we drafted the various code sections, brought all of those to you in chunks so that you could provide us with your feedback. Then we got into refining the code, really incorporating all of the feedback we received from you all and from the public. And now here we are in summer 2025 for adoption. So I had mentioned we had several chunks that we presented this code in. So we started with districts and uses, and then that led into natural resource protection, landscape, and buffer standards. Then we got into general development, building design, and sign standards, then access and mobility and subdivision standards. And then last but not least, all of the processes, nonconformities, and definitions. So we really have been building up to this day for quite some time, now that we have the full code in front of us to consider for recommendation. So as Ned had mentioned, this new land development ordinance would replace your current Title 17, which is subdivisions, and Title 18, which is zoning, and just have one brand new Title 17 land development ordinance. The structure is going to be much more user-friendly for you all, not have as much flipping back and forth to do between the two titles, and hopefully will be much more streamlined for you moving forward. So real quick, getting into community engagement. So we had 4 critical categories of folks that we were engaging throughout this process. So the general public, stakeholders, and by that we mean folks who are more technically involved in the development here in Eau Claire, boards and commissions, and then of course our policymakers. We had tons of project communications throughout this process. So there were press releases, TV and press interviews, lots of social media and email blasts. We had a project website that was up throughout this process where folks could learn about the project and provide their feedback online. It also hosted videos, an online questionnaire, interactive story maps. We provided educational memos, the recommendations report, and then of course all of the meeting materials from the ZPAC meetings and the Zoning Technical Advisory Committee meetings as well. So we had lots of meetings with stakeholders, various communications, interviews, presentations. So that included the ZTAC, which is the Zoning Technical Advisory Committee, and that was comprised of various industry professionals that have specific expertise in the various technical areas of development. So we had 11 meetings with those folks, 11 meetings with the Zoning Policy Advisory Committee, and then staff solicited a ton of input from all of the other boards and commissions and committees that the city has. We conducted 10 public open houses throughout the process. So we had a couple in the beginning to kick off the project, several along the way as we were meeting with the ZPAC. We would end the meeting with an open house or a public comment period. And then before the adoption, we brought everything together for 2 more pre-adoption open houses. So lots of opportunity for the public to learn about what the changes are all about and provide their input. And certainly the residents of Eau Claire have taken advantage of that, and we've certainly heard their input and their feedback along the way. In addition to the more community-wide events, we've had other inclusive outreach options. So we had a meeting with people with disabilities to make sure our standards were incorporating any or removing any barriers that they saw in the current code. We had some Hmong engagement events, so specifically for those folks that English is not their first language, so it would be easier for them to engage in the process. We had a Jonah Affordable Housing Task Force meeting. We had a booth at National Night Out, several meetings with neighborhood associations, including tours, to better understand their concerns and their hopes for the new zoning in their neighborhoods. The neighborhood zoning workshop was a great opportunity for the residents to really learn about zoning and its impact on development in a neighborhood. This was done in partnership with the University of Wisconsin-Madison Extension, and we really had a great turnout here. People were really wrestling with how to build out the community, how to address missing middle housing, and I think it helped garner some support for these gentle density increases that the new LDO is considering. So going back to 2023, when the city released its request for proposals for this project, it had several purposes, several goals that it wanted to achieve. Wanted to have a public process, make sure education was really first and foremost, improve user friendliness, reduce exclusionary zoning practices, lessen sprawl and environmental habitat degradation, help to reach the city's carbon neutrality goals. There's also a big push to ensure alignment between these zoning standards, subdivision standards, and the city's comprehensive plan. So mainly producing more housing supply and diversity of choice, and then having more complete streets and neighborhoods that have housing choice and are more walkable. There's also a goal to, or a purpose for the project to have better site design, better building design, improve development certainties. So taking these manuals that the city has that are pretty subjective and require a lot of interpretation and really are more encouragements than requirements, integrating them into the code to provide more fair certainty across the board. So we condensed these project purposes into three main project goals. So improve housing affordability and availability, enhance community character, and integrate sustainability. I'm going to use these three project goals as the kind of organizing factor behind the major proposed changes that we'll get into next. So this is just an overview of the various chapters of the new LDO. We start with very high level with our zoning districts, then get into uses, and then chapters 4 through really 11 there are all of the different standards of more general applicability. So standards that might apply regardless of the district that you're located in. So signs and landscape and parking, subdivisions, et cetera. And then when we get to 12, 13, and 14, that's more of the administrative side of the code, processes, nonconformities, and interpretations. And this is a photo of the new proposed zoning map. So you'll notice that these are all new districts. We've really taken your R1, R2, R3 type districts and really aligned those more with the future land use map in the city to make sure that there is more clarity and purpose for the districts and what we're trying to get at in terms of infill development and new development in the city. So starting off with housing affordability, this was really a main driver for this project, for the city to undertake this project. And that all started with studies and plans to really consider what type of housing is needed in the community, what makes affordable housing possible in a community. So that is what that Enabling Better Places, a user's guide to Wisconsin neighborhood affordability really taught us, was what exactly does a city need to do to enable more affordable housing. That led to the Eau Claire Regional Housing Study, and that was done in partnership with the county and Altoona to understand what's missing in the communities in the region, and then what can these different municipalities do to help resolve the problem. And that study really found that there's a gap in all of the different income categories of housing. It's really a housing shortage issue as well as a housing affordability issue. So those recommendations got addressed in the update to the comprehensive plan, and then we are looking to align with those policy recommendations of the comprehensive plan with the new LDO. So before we move forward, I wanted to just give a quick overview of what is considered affordable housing. So in Eau Claire County, the median household income is just about $72,000. So 80% of that would be folks making about $57,000 a year, and 60% would be $43,000. Those are the two kind of benchmarks that we use when we talk about affordable housing in the code and how to incentivize those two levels of income, or housing that would be affordable to those two levels of income. So how does the new LDO support housing affordability? It does this in quite a few ways. So first, it has smaller lot sizes, and this leads to more housing units per acre. So in 1 to 4 unit housing, up to 50% more housing units would be allowed per acre. And then for multifamily, that goes to 20% more units per acre. So of course, with the cost of land really adding to the cost of housing, if you can build more housing units on the same amount of land, then you're going to get more affordable housing. We've also included more housing types to make it easier for different types of housing to be built in the community. So they all have different standards. Right now, to do a lot of different variety of housing types, you'd have to go through a plan development process, and that can add a lot of time and cost to development. So by just establishing these different housing types within the code, we're helping to streamline the development process. We're also proposing to allow for narrower roads, and of course with the cost of land and the cost of improving roads being so high, lowering that requirement down in some instances to 40 feet will really help to reduce costs. We've lowered parking requirements, especially for housing, so there's a savings of about $7,000 per surface stall. So with every required parking stall based off of the square footage or based off of the number of bedrooms or units of housing, we're really helping to reduce costs in that way. We're also proposing stricter parking maximums. So currently there's a parking maximum that's in place, but there's an allowed waiver to that residential developers have really taken advantage of, and they really propose more parking than what the code would require without getting kind of much back in response to that. So now we're requiring either a parking study, or they provide permeable pavers to help offset that stormwater impact. So we're trying to make it a bit harder to go above the parking maximum, again, to try and reduce the cost of housing overall. We have various parking adjustments that are allowed. So if you have affordable units, if you have proximity to transit or on-street parking, you can stack all of those waivers, all of those adjustments to get a maximum 100% of your parking reduced. We're proposing alternate subdivision formats, and I'll go through those in a bit more detail later on, but those primarily focus on allowing more clustered housing development. So again, more housing units on less land. And then a streamlined approval procedures will really help to speed up the process, so there's less upfront costs to the developer in terms of time to go to meetings and different phases of the development, so that hopefully that would trickle down to lower housing costs on the other end. And now Ned is going to get into a bit more detail on some examples here on how we're lowering housing costs.
Thank you, Jackie. Yeah, so you have seen Plan Commission, especially those commissioners that have been here for quite some time, a consistent trend that we see the market housing developers add more parking. Coming before you at your last meeting, you had 2 requests for over 25% added parking stalls. That is not required by code. That is the developers, the home builders, actually asking for those waivers before you. A couple examples just to call out: Oakwood Flats at your last meeting asked for a 35% bump in added parking stalls, or 20 more stalls. If you actually use that $7,000 per stall average construction cost, that adds to that $140,000 to rents. So those developers have to spread those additional costs into their pro formas of their rent rates. Session Street, which was billed as a 50 to 80% AMI, CMI project before you, 2 12-plexes, which had no interior hallway to save costs. That project actually proposed 9 extra parking stalls. If you equate that with the $7,000, that's $63,000 of added costs onto an affordable project. Paragon, which is our largest multi-unit apartment building complex to date in the city that actually asked for TIF incentives and also committed to affordable housing with 75 units at 60% and 80% AMI, added an additional 82 parking stalls to their development, which if you equate that with the $7,000 is $574,000 of added cost with getting the city incentive. So this is just to point out that we actually are having developers put in more parking than what the city requires, contrary to some of what the letters have talked about in your packet, that the new zoning code is actually requiring more parking when actually we're requiring less, and we're being more stringent about it with maximums instead of the waiver that typically you'll have a housing developer come up to you and say, well, we just don't want to have the market risk, so we're going to put in the extra, but they might have indoor parking, garages, and a lot of extra surface stalls. So now we're really kind of trying to call them to the mat to say, if you really need this, then do these additional incentives. It also should be noted that 1 and 2 units, we do not require garages now, nor in the new code. And by adding a garage, that also adds costs to housing for those particular units. So just to point that out. And again, these costs need to be absorbed, typically often in rents. The LDO also supports some other locked-in incentives that we really want to make sure that the city is able to get that community benefit. So if a developer wants some flexibility on exterior cladding or other different type things, they can come before the Plan Commission and City Council and ask for a waiver through the plan unit development process. And in this case, one of the options is to lock in 25% units at 80% CMI and also 15% of that project for 30 years in a deed restriction. So the city can get truly affordable housing for a long period of time within that project if they're asking for flexibility upon the rules. Also, Jackie had mentioned about the parking stall reduction, that within affordable units, again at 60% CMI, deed restricted, you can actually waive half the parking stalls for the project. Again, folks that might be using more transit or walking because they can't own a car. So just to point out, these things are all new elements in the new LDO that we don't have in our current code.
So a lot of this project and a lot of what we depended on the ZPAC to help us do is find that balance between the city's goal of providing affordable housing and supporting the development of more housing in the community with some of its other goals of providing more parkland, improving the appearance of development in the community, enhancing landscape and preserving trees. So these were all really important goals that the city also wanted to achieve. So we did a lot of work to try and balance that out. So we think we've really hit a sweet spot where we are really incentivizing affordable housing while still meeting the city's other goals of that really improve quality of life in Eau Claire. So moving into housing diversity, again, there are a lot of housing types that have been added. You can see all the various ones here through the pictures. We've also included new housing type diversity standards. So in new subdivisions of 20 or more acres, a minimum distribution of housing types would need to be provided. So we've broken those into 3 categories: single family, a missing middle, which includes a lot of different types of housing within that category, and multifamily. So you'd have a maximum amount of single family, a minimum amount of missing middle, and I believe a min to maximum amount of multifamily as well. So that in these new neighborhoods that might be built in the community, again, of 20 acres or more, so of substantial size, would have that housing diversity to meet the city's goals. So moving into the next category of really ensuring that we're preserving and improving Eau Claire's character over time, we want to focus on how the new LDO supports compatibility. So we're proposing a new residential infill overlay district, and this would be established over the more historic portions of the city's core neighborhoods. So within this overlay, if you're doing any type of residential infill development, so whether it's a single-family home up to a multifamily building, you would need to meet these minimum requirements of orientation. So your front entrance would have to be oriented towards the street, just like all the other homes along the block. You would have to have a residential roof type, so a pitched roof, a gambrel roof, some type of roof type that is consistent with what is seen in that neighborhood. And then off-street parking, you can't have an attached front-loaded garage. You would need to have that detached garage in the rear or parking surface stalls in the rear to, again, continue that visual appearance that you see from the sidewalk. Then we also have introduced quality enhancements. So based off of the category, whether they choose category 1 or category 2 quality enhancements, that would influence the number of quality enhancements they would need to meet. But these 17 or 16 different items, 17 have been culled from the various neighborhood plans that are relevant to this area. So we really took a look at what the residents of these neighborhoods were saying makes their neighborhood unique and makes it so special for the residents that live there. And we wanted to provide this more menu of options so that residents or developers can come up with a design that's compatible with the neighborhood, but also isn't going to be a copy-paste for all of the new infill development that might happen. So continuing on with compatibility, we have new height transition standards. So there's 4 options. If your building is going to be 1 or more stories taller than an adjacent building, we want to make sure that you're providing an appropriate transition between the 2 developments. So whether that's a step back in building height or you use the architecture of the building through dormers or sloping roofs to provide that transition. Again, we wanted to do a menu of options so that developers have flexibility, but that we still have very objective standards that are clear on how they can be met. We also have new screening standards. So 5 screen types are established. These are going to help mitigate visual and light trespass, make sure that there's appropriate transitions between incompatible land use, and then help enhance the visual quality of the site and surroundings. Next, we'll move into building design, and I really want to hit on one of the main goals that we had with our building design standards. So currently, the city has subjective design guidelines. So these are going to be qualitative expectations that describe the character of design. They can really be interpreted in a lot of different ways. So residents may think they say one thing when developers think they say another thing, and you all are kind of stuck in the middle and having to figure out exactly what they should say. They're much more difficult to enforce and require that legislative approval process because there is subjectivity in the decision making. What we're trying to move towards are more objective design standards. So these are more measurable requirements. They would be reviewed and approved by city staff, so your planning staff. So these would be much more predictable in their outcome, more consistently applied across development, and would help to streamline and clarify the review process. So we'll go into a bit of detail on what you all have now with specifically multifamily development. So on the left-hand side, we have the multifamily housing manual, and some of these highlighted words here are then addressed in the new LDO standards. So multifamily housing will have pitched roofs. We now handle that through roof articulation standards, so it's much clearer that how you can meet that requirement of a pitched roof. So we have standards that would be applicable to buildings 60 feet or longer, and then you can get an administrative adjustment if you have a design other than what the standards would require. Articulated facades. We have new facade articulation standards. The manual requires them every 40 feet. We're proposing every 60 feet, so trying to provide a bit more flexibility there. We also have clearer standards as to what qualifies as facade articulation, so taking out some of that guesswork. The multifamily manual requires front entrances, windows, porches, or balconies. We have new entryway design standards. a specified percentage of glazing that would be required. And then for multi-unit building complexes or sites where you have multiple multifamily buildings on one site, there's a menu of improvement options that we're proposing 3 be required to be chosen. And one of those options is to provide balconies on 50% of street-facing units, and then those balconies could be distributed throughout the project. So really, again, trying to provide more flexibility in what the manual requires today and more specificity so that it's easier to meet the requirements, easier to kind of provide that fair certainty to residents and developers and you all. These are just some diagrams representing the various new standards. So we have the balcony requirement, facade articulation, roof line articulation, and then a couple of the entryway design options. Next, in your multifamily housing manual, there's currently a requirement of 15% open space and then some kind of vague language on recreational facilities related to the needs of the persons residing. So pretty vague in terms of how you meet that standard. In the new LDO, we're proposing that at least 10% of the site be set aside, so that is a reduction in the current 15% requirement. And we also have clear standards for social gathering space, so it's much easier to meet these requirements and to provide that recreational facility in the community. Next, in the multifamily housing manual, there's discussion about building massing. So about the size and the height must be compatible with abutting or residential development. Really no clear standard as to what that means or how you meet that. Now we have those new height transition standards that I went over just a couple slides back to really make it clear as to how you can meet that requirement. For building architecture, the manual requires similar building materials to be compatible with existing development. We have much more clear standards in the new code about the types of required and allowed materials so that it's much easier to meet that standard moving forward. And again, just some diagrams. So we have our height transition standards, exterior building cladding material standards, and then the different percentages of whether something is required or allowed in different districts. We have new standards for site design to really help improve the compatibility, the appearance of various types of development throughout the community. And these are all seen in supplemental use standards. So for 1 and 2 unit attached housing, we have new garage standards that are proposed to really try and get at the comprehensive plan goal of creating neighborhoods that are more connected, that really foster more community. So there's a limitation on the amount of projection that a garage can have in front of the house. New standards for row houses, that's what this diagram is representing, so how they can be oriented. Vehicle fueling stations, additional standards for setbacks from residential, similarly for drive-throughs, outdoor seating, food truck courts, parking lots, all to make sure that these are going to be well-sited and well-designed moving forward. Our access and mobility standards also deal with site design, so looking at internal access drives, making sure it's easier and safer to access large developments. Vehicular connectivity, trying to make sure new parking lots are connected internally to a site rather than having folks pull out onto the street and cause those traffic delays or traffic safety concerns. And then large parking lot screening. If you're going to have 200 or more parking spaces, requiring some screening with outlot or liner buildings to really improve the walkability of the community overall. Now I'll get into subdivision design and our new subdivision formats. So first we have conservation design, and this allows for clustering of sites and for more housing options if a percentage of the site is set aside as permanent conservation space. And there are standards as to what would qualify for that conservation space. so that we're ensuring that we're really getting the important natural resources of the community preserved over time. We also have green courts, so this would allow for the clustering of 1 unit up to 4 unit dwellings along a green court. So they would all front the green court and have alley access for garages. And then similarly, we have carriage courts. So instead of all fronting a green space, they would all front sort of a shared driveway space. So this would be a much more clustered option for housing. That would be a private drive that they would have shared ownership over to access all of their garages. And then from the street, the 2 houses closest to the street would be oriented towards the public street to provide that kind of neighborhood continuity. We also have new residential park space requirements that would apply to new subdivisions. So if you are within an existing park service area or within a half mile of an existing park, you would pay an impact fee so that that park can be improved in the future. Council is going to consider what that fee should be in their meeting in September. And then if you're within a planned park service area, so that would be identified in the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, you either provide a parkland dedication as a part of the development itself or a fee in lieu so that the city could then acquire that land and activate that land as a park moving forward. And then if you're outside of those 2 areas, then you would be required to provide more of a private park space following those social gathering space standards that I had previewed for you all previously. So really wanting to ensure that there is equitable access to park space throughout the community and that new residents that would be impacting existing parks are paying for future improvements and the betterment of those parks moving forward. We also have new requirements for subdivision roads and connectivity, so making sure that there are really clear standards as to what's required within the various street cross sections, making sure that our neighborhoods are more connected so folks aren't quite so dependent on their vehicles, they're able to walk and bike more places. And similarly with external connectivity so that our neighborhoods are more connected to one another rather than being sort of the enclave subdivisions that we see today. Moving into our third and final goal, sustainable design, there are new standards for solar energy collection systems, wind energy collection systems that will really help get at that carbon neutrality goal by 2050 that the city has. The new parking minimums and maximums also will help with achieving sustainability goals with having less impermeable surfaces that really contribute to the urban heat island effect and stormwater. And then new requirements for bird safe design to make sure development moving forward is more friendly to wildlife. Our new landscape standards are certainly more sustainable than what the city has today. So we have new objective requirements instead of the guidelines that the city relies on now. So it requires trees, shrubs, forbs, grasses, and ornamental plants, addresses native and pollinator species, and then also incentivizes vegetated green stormwater practices to really build in that green infrastructure into the code itself. We also have new standards for tree preservation and mitigation. So it would require 30% of high value trees, and this will be a defined list of tree species. So if they have 12 inches or more of diameter, they either need to be preserved, replanted on site, or replaced via a fee in lieu, which is currently proposed at $400 per inch of diameter that's being removed. So how does the tree preservation and mitigation standards apply? So it would not apply to existing residential lots that are less than 10,000 square feet and that are outside of waterways, defined waterways, but it would apply in all other cases. So if there's a high-value tree that's to be removed, a site plan or other type of city approval would be required, and then that 30% mitigation, preservation, replanting, or fee in lieu would be triggered. And then Ned's going to get into a little bit more detail on that replacement requirement.
Thank you, Jackie. So we continually to test the code to make sure that we're ready to go when it's actually enacted. One of the things when we looked at the 10,000 square foot exemption, those lots that are under, lots that fall above, say, 10,000 in an acre, you might have an existing homeowner on that property. Let's just give an example of how this might play out. So if we have, say, 3 large white pines on a property of 15,000 square feet, again, plenty of houses, single-family houses that are around, 10,000 plus lots, especially if it's on a cul-de-sac and a hill in the back. You got 3 white pines, 30 inches total for each tree. You got 90 inches at 30% mitigation value. You got 27 inches to actually replace. So you can do that in a combination of replanting on site where you cut down those trees, say after you put down a shed. You can pay the fee in lieu of. And here's an example. After you spend the money to cut down those trees, say it's $2,000 per tree. These are large white pines. Then you have 21 inches, or you replace it with 3 new 2-inch white pines. So you mitigate with 6 new inches of trees. You have 21 inches left out of the 27 that you have to mitigate, and you have a decision to make. Do I pay the fee in lieu of, or do I try to plant other trees on other properties that I might own, or find a neighbor? So there's an option that way. If, for example, you needed to pay the fee, what we've realized is that $400 times 21 for a homeowner could mean $8,400. So you've cut down your trees plus $8,400. You're talking possibly over $14,000 for somebody maybe just to put in a shed or a new garage on a larger lot. So we oftentimes have, building permits that come in for a larger garage. You see them at conditional use permits and things, but we want to call this to your attention as something you may consider. And so if this is a concern for you about these added costs for existing homeowners or for renters for these lots that sort of fall in between an acre and 10,000 square feet that would be subject to normal developer rules, you might want to consider some possible things to think about, such as increasing the lot size trigger, exempting all lots 1 through 4 dwellings, period, if they contain that unit, adjusting the DBH or the diameter of breast height, or cap the fee, the $400 fee. You did vote with council members at your last meeting and thought $400 was a solid number. Also in your packet, there was an explanation about how that fee was arrived at. So these are some things to consider. Again, no discussion right now, but we wanted to call this to your attention. Turn it back over to Jackie.
So real quick, we'll get into our next steps. So we have City Council first reading scheduled for July 7th. Then they'll hold a public hearing on the 21st and consider adoption on the 22nd. So it doesn't stop there, though. There are lots of other sections of the municipal code that would need to be updated. The fee schedule and application manual would need to be approved by resolution. Staff is planning on doing all of that in September, and then the LDO would go into effect in October. So the goal here is to get everything approved in July, but then really work on making sure all of our I's are dotted, our T's are crossed in the following months, so that by the time the code goes into effect, everything is buttoned up and it's ready to really hit the road there. So with that, thank you all so much for your time and your attention this evening. We're happy to answer any questions that you have before the public hearing, or if anything comes up during discussion after that.
Questions? I would just like to ask again about what Ned just brought up about the tree preservation and those options that you had. Could you sort of describe each option, what its impact, the significance of its impact would be? Are some greater than others in terms of minimizing costs? It's $8,400, very expensive.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, all of them have implications, and so we, instead of giving you a recommendation, we thought, here's a list to consider. There's different, because it's a formula, depending on how you tinker with the actual, whether it's the dollar, the DBH, the lot size, those things all have an effect. Again, we called this out more for existing lots, not the type of development lots that you might have a new subdivision and all that. So generally, I mean, you could still do a decent development on an acre, but an acre to 25,000 square feet. 25,000 square feet is kind of roughly your new, well, it's your R1A standard right now, and it will be your non-sewered residential district standard at 25,000 square feet minimum lot area. So that's quite a large lot. So again, 4 areas to consider when you get into your actual deliberation.
Thank you, Mr. Noel. Any further questions? Commissioner Erickson.
Mr. Noel, what about trees that pose, say, a hazard or that are doing damage, whether it be to private property or public infrastructure, roads, curbs, sidewalks, that sort of thing? And how does this tree ordinance, if at all, affect our boulevard trees?
So the boulevard trees would be a credit. So that would allow, if you replanted on that would be a credit back to your mitigation standard. The boulevard is a public property, so if you're going to take that down, that's really the call of the city forester, so that would not apply. But in terms of the hazard trees or, impacting roads and things like that, those would be exempt. So those are called out in the ordinance in terms of that the city forester just needs to check that, whether it's through the permit or a resident asking, this is my tree, I think it's diseased, can you come verify? And then they can actually call the shot and exempt those trees. So if it's a hazard, if it possibly would fall on the house, that city forester could make that call, and that would not be subject to this rule. We're talking about more projects that you might have a larger lot with plenty of woods on it, and you want to use that to put a site improvement on, not a new development, and how that might actually, the implications of it.
Would that also apply then to, let's say, private trees, not on any road right of way or public property, that perhaps it's located too close to the house and it's doing damage to the roof or the foundation or something of that sort? Would those also be exempt?
Correct.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you for the presentation. This item is a public hearing. If you are here to speak to this item, please approach the podium and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Watch for the lights up there. Please state your name and address and spell your last name.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kate Felton, 1140 City View Drive. It's my first time speaking since being off council, so thank you for having me. I'm here to speak in support of trees and the recent changes to the ordinance. When I was thinking about where I wanted to spend my life just before college, I came to visit Eau Claire, and it's truly not an over-exaggeration when I say that I chose Eau Claire because of the natural beauty that's here. I've been here for 15 years and have built a small business. I own 2 properties, spend lots of money in the economy, and so this is all to just say that trees have economic value. Not only do they bring people here and keep people here, but they reduce our energy bills. The trees on my property shade my house so that I don't have to crank my AC on days like today. We know that they mitigate flooding. I have a house in the 3rd ward that tends to flood in the basement, and so I know that the tree that's on my property, the one tree on my little property, mitigates that, and it reduces mental health issues that can be really costly for the people in our community too. And so I really hope that you'll vote to support the trees and their economic value that they bring. I think that when we think about trees being removed now under our current system, it's hard to think about that economic value just vanishing for free. We have developers in our community, just like lots of people in our community, they're working to make a living, they're working to make a profit, and I think with lots of other things, the things that reduce our economic value, they should be paying for that reduction in economic value. I think it's important that this cost is put on our the folks who are making a profit from these things, and not onto our taxpayers by way of mitigation. I think it would be easy to say, like, well, the city can mitigate this loss by planting boulevard trees and that sort of thing, but that's a cost that's put on our taxpayers and not on the people who are profiting from removing trees. Lastly, I just wanted to say that for a really long time, I've been a huge supporter of affordable housing. I think it's extremely important, and I really don't, as somebody who values that and also values our environment, we often see like poverty and the environment kind of at odds, but I truly don't believe that it has to be that way. I think we can have both things. I think that we're creative enough in this community to have both things, and I just wanted to support the idea of a waiver for projects that are committed to building affordable housing, a waiver on this this tree policy, so that when affordable housing is being built, the fee for trees is maybe not taken, which I know is an idea that's being considered on council right now too. So thanks so much for all the work you do, and support the trees.
Questions for Ms. Felton?
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Ms. Moeller back up.
Thank you. Nice to see you again.
Yes.
So I'm here because the Jonah Affordable Housing Task Force wrote you all a letter highlighting the urgent need to remove unnecessary barriers to affordable housing. And I know we're all for affordable housing, and we all want that to happen. So the Chippewa Valley Biodiversity Partnership kind of looked into what were those best practices nationally, and we found that there are waivers available in Atlanta specifically and in Portland as well, that basically waive the tree protection fees for those, for entities that focus on low-income housing. And so we're very much in support of that. We want you to know that. I know that Worthman and Schoen are working right now on that issue. And we really have to reject the false choice between trees and low-income housing, as was just discussed. And they can coexist. We need to commit to a greener future wherever, and an equitable future as well. So thank you very much for your time and all you've done.
Questions for Ms. Moeller? Seeing none, thank you, ma'am. Anybody else who would like to speak? Please state your name, address, and spell your last name.
I'm Peter Hobley, H-A-B-L-E, and I live at 1323 South Farwell Street.
Okay.
Members of the Planning Commission, since the ZPAC began 2 years ago, I've watched how it might affect my neighborhood. In the 3rd Ward, rezoning to neighborhood residential is inconsistent in the areas designated to maintain low density. This can be found on page 1 within our comprehensive plan, and I would offer a map for you if you'd like. In our executive summary, it states, and I quote, "Redevelopment options are possible closer to downtown, while single-family areas located south of Jefferson Street and Gilbert Avenue are to be preserved." That's page 3. Our comprehensive plan is legally part of the city comprehensive plan, and zoning must be consistent with the comprehensive plan. For 2 years plus, the 3rd Ward held listening sessions and conducted surveys. We've held many meetings, some here at City Hall, spending hours developing this plan. The city invested hours and money helping us write this plan. It was voted on and approved by our elected steering committee, recommended by you or your predecessors, and approved by the City Council in 2020, only 3 years before this ZPAC process began. Now, I know there's a proposal to change our comprehensive plan to be consistent with the proposed zoning without our say. Yet the 3rd Ward did not change its mind. Over the last 2 years, ZPAC has had numerous open houses, listening sessions, and other ways seeking the citizens' wants, needs concerning zoning. What could be better input from your constituents than a thoroughly vetted neighborhood comprehensive plan that you approved of? We are asking for these areas designated as low density in our comprehensive plan to be rezoned as general residential, not neighborhood residential. This includes our neighbor, Collector Road, South Farwell, south of Washington Street, and Summit, east of State Street. And I support Commissioner Brewster's edit to the zoning code. Thank you.
Questions for Mr. Hobley? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Hobley. Anyone else that would like to speak on agenda item number 5 as part of the public hearing tonight? Please state your name, address, and spell your last name.
I'm Eileen Immerman. I am the Communications Director for the Third Ward Neighborhood Association, and tonight I'm speaking for the Executive Committee and the Steering Committee of the Third Ward Neighborhood Association. I own a home. I've owned 2 homes in Eau Claire. I've lived here 44 years. The first home was in Randall Park, and it was a National Historic home. The home I own now is also on the river, a National Historic home. I'm a little confused because I want to talk about Aaron's amendment, but it hasn't been read yet. So how do we go about that?
Staff, you want to give me some advice on how to handle this? We haven't introduced the amendment yet. That would typically be introduced after a motion is made. During.
As far as, feel free to share your perspective on.
Yeah, feel free to share what you know about Aaron's amendment.
Well, Aaron, we've worked with Aaron this whole time. I probably went to the first ZPAC meeting in November of 2023 when we were at Banbury. We've had probably 20 meetings on this. Ned unfortunately knows us well. And we've really tried to work and to teach our community, and we understand why all this has been done. I think the thing that is the most disturbing to us right now is the potential impact changing the Third Ward blanket to NR would mean for our single-family homeowners. And like Peter said, our goal was to have more single-family homes in our area. We certainly already have plenty of apartments, plenty of student housing. It's not all single-family homes. The one thing that I want to say is that if we switch it all to NR right now, I think we're making a mistake. The reason being, you can always change it later, but you can't go back and make something that's NR, GR, because then you're taking rights away from people. So let's not jump the gun here. We can always look in 3 or 5 years and see what impact did this have on the Third Ward, keeping some of the areas GR. The areas that butt against Putnam Park, the areas that butt against the river, all of those are exempt anyway and have to be NR. So I'm not saying we would have a giant, but it would be a significant amount. And homeowners in that area, all of us that own older homes have unique expenses. And you don't want to lose the charm that the Third Ward gives to potential residents of Eau Claire when they come and visit. And I think it's just, it's unique, and it's the oldest neighborhood. So thank you. I think that's all I need to say.
Questions for Ms. Immerman? Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Anyone else that would like to speak on agenda item number 5, please state your name, address, and spell your last name.
Sure. My name is Laura Lash, L-A-S-H. I live at 511 Lincoln Avenue. I am a commissioner on the Housing Opportunities Commission, and sometimes I am otherwise known as the program coordinator at Home for Good and the owner at Shift. This is an excerpt from our letter that was given to City Council. As you know, the Housing Opportunities Commission was established by the City Council in 2020 to advise on housing policy and support efforts to expand access to affordable housing. Among the stated purposes of the commission is to review affordable housing policies and provide recommendations and comments to the Plan Commission and City Council. Unfortunately, the current draft includes elements such as aesthetic mandates, strict tree preservation requirements, and new parking impact fees that function as affordability roadblocks. These provisions increase construction costs and reduce flexibility without demonstrable benefit to safety, efficiency, or long-term sustainability. These kinds of policies, while well-intended, have the unintended consequence of pushing more households out of the housing market. At a time when over 1/3 of our residents are already struggling to afford basic needs, the city must choose to be part of the solutions, not inadvertently make the problem worse. Design standards can add significant costs that have to be recovered in the building price or rental rates. Twin homes and multifamily developments represent the most affordable housing types, and this is where the standards, examples garages, building materials, landscaping, have the most negative impact. We ask you to re-look at the design standards to remove restrictions, especially on garage standards. The proposed tree preservation standards will add significant fees, especially onto smaller infill developments and more wooded land. We encourage you to look differently at tree preservation to encourage tree cover with incentives rather than arbitrary requirements and fees that significantly increase costs and discourage infill development. If the current tree preservation structure moves forward in the code, then we ask for the DBH to be increased to reduce some of the overall cost impact. Finally, mandates for multifamily developments, such as requiring balconies or expensive building structures, social gathering spaces, etc. This is an area where the market should be allowed to determine what is built, especially considering that multifamily is the most affordable type of housing that can be provided. Developers will still frequently provide these amenities for market reasons, but to mandate them for all developments is counterproductive to building naturally occurring affordable housing. We ask you to relook at mandating requiring balconies or expensive building structures, social gathering spaces, etc. Then to improv, anecdotally, I would tell you during my day when I talk to families that are seeking adequate and affordable housing, we have had to work with them to differ their rental prices by as little as $53 a month. So it's been floated at some of the meetings I've attended that the balconies, the social gathering spaces may add $100 a month to rental costs. That is more or equal to a utility bill or a loan payment or insurance on a car. So this is necessary money for affordable, for low-income families, and we'd like you to consider that, please. Thank you.
Questions for Ms. Lash? Seeing none, thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak on agenda item number 5?
Takes a minute.
Sure.
Not as young as I think I am.
Please state your name, address, and spell your last name.
Okay. Helene Smyar, S-M-I-A-R, 320 Broadway Street in historic Randall Park neighborhood. I'm going to add on to Eileen Zimmerman. We're in the same boat with not really wanting what your consultants want in terms of infill. Our plan that we've had for zoning for the last 12 years, we finally got it settled with the city, is to keep your bigger buildings around the edge and the interior preserved for no more in our neighborhood than duplexes. Now, as I was listening to them, if your infill is limited to duplexes, you don't have to have parking requirements now. That's fine, that works. When you talk about affordability, which they talk a lot about, we already have built homes that are the only affordable homes right now. Right now, I just talked to a landlord today, by the way, who said that the students have just vaporized, disappeared. They do not have the student traffic. There are a lot of empty units. I don't know if you are aware that we already have non-profit organizations working in the neighborhood with the landlords to reclaim some of those homes that have good bones. They're all in the central core. Now, if you allow developers to come in and put in fourplexes, you're competing with the people whose main interest is to house the unhoused and the working poor. And we have the same goals, but I don't think that your consultants understand the older neighborhoods are never going to be conforming. They were built before you had zoning. So, you know, you could get off of that. You're changing the dimensional standards. So what I want to say, which what Eileen said, basically, if you do this incrementally, do not impact the interior of our neighborhoods, these two older neighborhoods. We're the only ones coming to ask this. I don't think it's a big ask. We're small neighborhoods. You're not going to lose that much housing, really. I know that there's a housing crisis, but what you've built already in the city, this is where the students have gone because their parents can subsidize them. Nobody can afford what's being built. We kind of wonder who's moving in here, or maybe they're young professionals from other cities who have bigger salaries. Because we don't really know. I mean, we don't have an analysis. But our neighborhood, Randall Park, is situated in the heart of the city by the downtown. It should be, you should concentrate on making homes for the working people of downtown. You walk to work. We walk downtown all the time. You have the hospital. You have, you know, the university. There are a lot of essential workers who could live in that neighborhood. We have the affordable, it's already compatible. We have the social gathering spaces. We have parks. We have a school. We have trails. It's a unique opportunity for the city to work with us. I noticed in the paper that the RDA is getting money for affordable housing. Well, if you combine, which is in our city comprehensive plan, your not-for-profits, by the way, our neighborhood has a not-for-profit arm. We do have a 501c3. We'll work with you. We'd love to. You get the nonprofits, you get a city money, you get, you don't want developers who are in there to make money. We want people who are making homes for people to live in and own and buy. Rent to begin, but no more than a duplex. I see the red light, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I did my best. But anyway, do you have any questions?
Okay. Questions for Ms. Smyer? Seeing none, thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else that would like to speak on agenda item number 5, please come forward. State your name, address, and spell your last name.
Eleanor Wolf. Wolf, W-O-L-F, no E on the end. And I live on Birch Street. And I'm speaking to the issue of affordable housing versus trees on the property. And I'm kind of big on the idea of equity. Do we place lower income people in less desirable neighborhoods? Yes. That's where they go to. And so in a new development or a new property, not to demand, not to require the owner to put trees on the property. It's not treating lower income people with any kind of equity. And I think that having trees on your property, whether it's an apartment building or a fourplex, it's just for the common good. It's not just for one person, it's for the common good and for all of us in the community. And I'm working with other people now on the $486,000 grant that the city got in my neighborhood district, the North Side neighborhood, because of the equity issue. We don't have the tree canopy that the Third Ward has. And that money is going to be used to take out old dead ash and plant new trees. So equity is big, and we shouldn't have areas in our city that have fewer trees and poorer trees. We can afford, and our developers should be able to afford to put in or not take out or not put in bad trees or no trees at all. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Questions for Ms. Wolf?
Thank
Seeing
you.
none, thank you, ma'am. Anyone else that would like to speak tonight on agenda item number 5? State your name, address, and spell your last name.
Jamie Larson, Larson. I'm at 620 Garden Street in Eau Claire. And I'm looking through my notes, and a lot of this has already been said, so I'm going to try to make it really brief. This is affordability and trees also. And in my opinion, I believe that it's really hard to put a monetary value on nature, on trees, and in green spaces in our community. Because like was already said, the health benefits, the safety benefits, the ecological benefits of trees is so great that, you know, you really can't put a value on that. We talked about common green spaces. That's huge. You know, they draw neighbors together. They create spaces for people to become acquainted. The trees and the green spaces are vital to a healthy, sustainable community. And like Eleanor was saying, there's historically certain neighborhoods, often lower income, they have less tree cover, and they're deprived of these benefits that trees offer. But there's cities, like as mentioned, Portland, Atlanta, and they're throughout the United States, they're recognizing that these trees create healthy living, and they're making equity programs using innovative housing developments. One thing I kind of look at, you know, you're saying like maybe like trees are in the way of affordable housing, and I think of all the developments that went on like in the city lately, and how many affordable housing units have been built, you know, like downtown. But out of the percentage of affordable housing units, how many of those apartments actually cleared trees? So like out of 2,000 units that were built, what percentage is considered affordable? And of those units, which were built on wooded land that actually required clearing all these trees? You know, there wasn't a lot. In my opinion, I don't know. But I don't really think it's just trees that's standing in the way of affordable housing. You know, affordable housing and the trees are not mutually exclusive. We can have strong ordinances that preserve our resources and affordable housing. Let's say that we do have an opportunity to create affordable housing in a wooded lot. Wouldn't it be great if we would work together to make something really special? We could make exceptions in the code for this. We could talk to ecologists, geologists, the people that are going to be living in these houses, affordable housing advocates, and advocates for the trees. We could put something really special together that would be a model for other cities. We could do this if we all have a voice and work together. Like you were saying, you know, it's kind of like getting together and listening to what other people have to say, too. We would not just have affordable houses, but we would have equity, and we would have equitable homes for families. And that would be a win for everybody. The affordable housing community, our ecology, our community, and the future of our city.
Questions for Ms. Larson? Seeing none, thank you, ma'am. Anyone else that would like to speak? State your name, address, and spell your last name.
Thank you. My name is Scott Rogers, R-O-G-E-R-S. I'm here representing the Eau Claire Area Chamber of Commerce, where I'm Vice President Governmental Affairs. I also am a resident of the city of Eau Claire, and I live in multifamily housing for the last 10 years as a renter. So I'm here representing the local business community, where housing supply and affordability is one of the top priorities of our community. As you know, we've been following and involved in the Century Code update and have previously provided letters and public comments to the Zoning Policy Advisory Committee. We do support the overall purposes of the zoning code. There are many provisions that will benefit what we view as the most important goal, and that is producing more housing supply, diversity of choices, and affordability. There are a few provisions in the final draft that would have a detrimental effect on affordability, and warrant being amended. These are the same concerns you've heard from by other groups concerned about affordability and in some of the other letters that you've received. They include the amenity standards for multifamily buildings that would increase rents on the most affordable types of housing, anti-monotony standards like garage frontage requirements that essentially mandate aesthetic taste but would inhibit affordability for entry-level home buyers, park impact fees and requirements that are well-meaning but should only be considered once the city's assessment of its parks portfolio is completed, and the expensive tree preservation standards that could discourage infill development and potentially encourage sprawl with unintended negative environmental consequences. I think everyone agrees that tree preservation is a worthwhile goal and that there are other ways to accomplish that. It's important to think of the city as an economic and social system where every decision can have consequences on other parts of the system. That includes the effect some of these issues have on the critical need to address housing supply and affordability in our community. And finally, a key thing to remember is that while increasing housing supply is not the only answer to housing affordability, there is no answer without increasing supply, and that needs to be kept in mind as the zoning codes approve. Thank you.
Questions for Mr. Rogers? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Rogers. Anyone else that would like to speak? Please state your name and address and spell your last name.
Right. My name is Jeff DeGrave, D-E-G-R-A-V-E. I live at 133 Lake Street in the historic Randall Park neighborhood. I'm trying not to repeat what everybody else said, but you've heard it a few times, and I'm looking at those words on the wall right behind you. It says, the city council and city staff work together with the community. And you've heard from particularly folks who live in historic neighborhoods like Randall Park and like the Third Ward, and maybe even some folks up in East Hill. They don't feel like their voice has been heard. And the city did a good job presenting and explaining how they've shared information. They've told people a lot of information. And I'm not saying they didn't receive feedback from neighborhoods, but they didn't seem to share how well they listened to the Third Ward or listened to Randall Park and said, here's the changes that we've made after we listened to these communities. So I'm sort of going down the road of one size does not fit all. Try to think of anything in life where one size fits everything, right? We have different size cars, we have different size houses, we have different size lots, we have different everything. And to try to impose is what it feels like when the voice, right, working with the community isn't being heard and changes being made according to that, then obviously it's a breakdown. And everything works so much better when the city staff work together with the community, as that says right there. A couple things, small things. I was just doing a little Googling. And the lot size, the average lot size in Randall Park, in my neighborhood, is 7,000 square feet. And a lot of the discussion was about various properties over 10,000 square feet, even some 25,000 square feet. The new plan for those spaces, great. You know, I have no voice about that. And if those folks would like this plan in those areas, that's fantastic. But for our neighborhood, it's the most densely populated neighborhood in the city. What infill is necessary, right? And when you build new buildings, the person who built those buildings wants to make money, so those new buildings are going to be more expensive than those buildings that already exist. Could I use the monitor for a screen? I'm not sure how to go about this. Or use the screen? No? Yeah, there's no option. Oh, okay, because I know there used to be, but. Yeah, it doesn't work. Oh.
Oh, it worked the other night.
Did it?
It might be functional again.
You have 20 seconds.
Oh, does this count? Thank you.
We'll try it.
We'll just go over here.
There you go.
Hey, look at that. Thank you. Zoom, zoom, zoom. All right. Thank you. So I just wanted to quickly address affordability. And I know in the past, a number of presentations referenced comparison cities like Georgetown, Lincoln Park, Illinois, and Madison. But you can see that Eau Claire, highlighted in green compared to the others highlighted in red, our income is so much lower than those cities. The average cost for a two-bedroom, I just picked that one randomly, is, arguably 1/3 the cost of, let's say, Lincoln Park, Illinois. And you can see those rents have increased dramatically. That is annual, and you can Google this, you can fact check me all you want. I have my sources listed at the bottom if you want to see them. Bottom line is this what we want for affordable housing? These cities are very expensive, and we've been assured by the city, like, well, once the market is saturated, the prices will level off and or drop. But when have we ever heard of Georgetown, Lincoln Park, or Madison's rents going down? Has that ever happened in any of our lifetimes? One last thought I did want to mention is that Georgetown and Lincoln Park aren't even cities. Those are neighborhoods. And so it isn't DC that they've rezoned the entire city, and it isn't Chicago where they rezoned the entire city. It is specific to a neighborhood, going back to one size does not fit all. So we look forward, as Helene noted, and Third Ward folks, we look forward to working with city staff to work with the community to assure common good. Thank you for giving me a couple extra minutes and for the video. Appreciate it.
Questions for Mr. DeGrave? Seeing none, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else that would like to speak? State your name, address, and spell your last name.
Yes, Christina Thrun, Thrun. I live at 2832 5th Street, and I'm the executive officer for the Chippewa Valley Home Builders Association. I'm here tonight to talk. Obviously, there's been a lot of work that's been done. We've been involved in this process all along, had spoken numerous times, and in a limited time, there's been a lot of great work done, and thanks to staff and everybody involved in getting to this point. There are still a few things in the existing code that we are concerned about with, especially with affordability. That's kind of been our big focus. And what a lot of the items in the code are really going to hit on is going to be that lower price point entry level, the entry level homes, the twin homes, and the rental units. One of the items that has been mentioned was the garage standards and looking to adjust the twin home 3 and 4plexes to match the single family garage projections, because the current proposed standard, instead of having narrower lots, which is what the code wants, it actually is going to force them to be wider to be able to accommodate the garage frontage standard. So that's one of the big things that we're encouraging, because that would really impact what's able to be built in the city. I know that Commissioner Brewster has an amendment to that that's coming forth, and we definitely support what's in there because of the impact on the lot sizes as well. That would, of course, increase the overall size of the twin homes with that. A big thing that's been talked about tonight a lot is tree preservation, and we definitely understand that we need to preserve trees, that we want trees, but the current tree preservation is very expensive. It's going to be having a big prohibitive cost impact, and the biggest impact is actually on the smaller infill developments, smaller wooded areas. There's a lot I can throw numbers at you. I have all sorts of information on it, but just raising the DBH from 12-inch to 18-inch basically cuts the costs in half. And when we start looking at a multifamily building with 20 units, when we looked at what a 2-acre infill development would be, the cost to that on a 12-inch DBH is $40,000. It drops in about half when you go up to 18 inches. That would translate to around $50 a month in rent. So when you talk about $50 a month in rent that was mentioned earlier, that puts that into realistic perspective for you as well in terms of what that $40,000 is. Another one is park impact fees. We finally see some costs for that coming out. We're able to share that looking at the impact on a multifamily building with 20 units, based on the proposed cost, would be over $33,000 under the cost of a multifamily unit. So you're starting to add up. So when you start looking at multifamily and you have balcony patio requirements, social gathering spaces, landscape screening, tree preservation, park impact fees, we're over $200 a month additional rent on each unit in multifamily. So we need to look at where can we make those amendments and make those adjustments. I do know there's some of these things are addressed in Commissioner Brewster's amendments. We do support everything that's in there fully, and I do also want to add that we also support the proposed amendments that are coming forth for the historic neighborhoods, because a lot of what's that's being proposed does go against some of the existing comprehensive plan, and that's going to be worked on later, and so that could be readdressed later when the comprehensive plan is addressed at that time. So, thank you.
Questions for Ms. Thrun? Seeing none, thank you, ma'am. Anyone else that would like to speak?
Steve Betchko, straight down the road on Farwell. My son, who's 35 years old and a single father, every day he gets up and he says, "Dad, those darn trees. I have to pay $850 of rent. I can't afford it, but it's those darn trees that are doing it." Obviously, I'm being cynical here. But it's preposterous, this argument, trees versus affordable housing. Really? Seriously? That's the idea here? I can tell you, we saw a graph up here that was telling you that it would cost $4,000 for trees, for 21 inches of trees. Plant 10 more 2-inch trees at $400, you don't have to pay $4,000. I heard people say that, oh yeah, you want to build an apartment, a huge apartment in a forest? Yeah, you're going to take a lot of trees. It's going to cost you. Yeah, don't build in the forest, right? Makes sense. And infill? Yeah, if we're talking about true infill, we're not talking about a lot of tree replacement here. So the mythologies are huge. The message is preposterous. I have served for 2 years on the Sustainability Advisory Committee and for almost the same amount of time now on the ZTAC. And I've been working intimately with this process and working with this. We've been, a lot of us in this room, working intimately with this process of trying to preserve trees. You understand, in Eau Claire, we are losing trees. We're not gaining trees. We're losing canopy every day here. And we've got climate crisis coming in. If we don't plan the future, we're not going to have one. That's a primary message that I have to give you here, that we are talking about a tree versus affordable housing war when really we all know the truth. We have to do both. We have to preserve trees. We have to maintain trees, and we have to figure out a way to make housing affordable. And so if we're going to have a war, let's talk about the price of plywood, all right? And let's talk about the bottom line. And I want to point out, I do not represent a commercial interest here, unlike some of the other people I've spoken here. I don't make any money off of planting trees or not planting trees. I just gain those benefits as a community member where I see a sustainable green future. And I did hear somebody say that, by the way. It's not a sustainable future to talk about tree maintenance, and that's absurd too. So I want you to make sure, I was at the meeting, the ZPAC meeting, where people in this room voted to support the standards of 12-inch DBH. I applaud you. I hope you stick with that because that's the future. We don't want to look like Nairobi here. We don't want to look like Mexico City here or Manila or Houston or Los Angeles. We want to look like Portland or Key West. We want to be a green Eau Claire, and that's because trees add to the quality of our life, a place where we all want to live, as has been expressed here. Thank you.
Questions for Mr. Betchko? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Betchko. Anyone else that would like to speak tonight on item number 5? Anyone else that would like to add? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing portion of our agenda item, and the chair would entertain a motion on agenda item number 5. Commissioner Leonard?
I move to recommend the rezoning code changes.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Leonard, second by Commissioner Brewster. Any further discussion? Commissioner Zoig.
So just to wrap my head around this, because this is staff talked many hours, felt like an hour ago. What are we exactly approving right now?
You want to give that some clarity?
It's a great question. It's a mouthful. So on the screen, you have these items as part of this agenda item. So you have all of this zoning code updates, Title 19, which is stormwater, which Rinkin had talked to you about. You have the repeal and replace of 17 and 18 into a new 17, the land development ordinance. You have the new zoning code map, which follows the new districts of the LDO. And then you have these repeal of these other things, the manuals that we've talked about, these guidelines and these overlays that conflict with the new LDO. So that would be the motion. Any other amendments that might be made as well that can be introduced. Does that help?
So is that tree part of it is in this right now?
As proposed in the LDO with the 12 dBH is in the code. When we met with you on March 5th or May 5th, you indicated by a survey that you kept 12 dBH as your preferred standard. That was the majority of the vote. Again, that encompasses also your council members as well. Keep that in mind. So for you this evening, we're asking for a recommendation on these items. Ultimately, City Council decides on these.
So I just want to have a quick discussion on this tree whole issue. So 10,000 square feet is roughly half of the city of Eau Claire. The other half is over 10,000 feet. So some of these people in here, I've looked at your lot sizes and they are over the 10,000 square foot. So if they were to build anything on their lot and have those trees, they would be getting charged that tree charge that we have, myself included, probably some of you as well. So if I do, or someone wants to build a second garage on their lot, they are going to be paying a hefty fee for this tree at 10,000 square feet. Now, we are really getting restrictive here and pretty much overcharging our residents to just increase the value of their home. So I'd like to have a discussion of, is 10,000 the number of a lot or the tree width or whatever the case may be, 15, 16,000. So a 10,000 acre lot is 0.2, we'll just say 0.22 feet. It's just like 10 feet over, square feet over a lot. A lot of these neighborhoods, half of them are over that size. I've sat and I checked GIS mapping of the city of Eau Claire's, and a lot of you have lots, not all, lots bigger than that. So if any inlay or development gets in and trees get down, we're adding value to our houses. So I'm looking for amendment or discussion on this topic. I think we are really restricting ourselves instead of trying to find the right purpose. I know I'm all for trees, don't get me wrong. I just planted 2 trees in my house. Okay, I have many trees and I'm not against it in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying that if we're gonna do this right, let's not squeeze ourselves and charge everyone in the city of Eau Claire for trying to improve their lot and restricting and putting more and more restrictions on everyone.
So I'll point out on the screen the possible changes that staff had introduced earlier, just for you to look at. Commissioner, is there any one of these or more than one of these that you're interested in pursuing?
Honestly, I would probably go the inches, but I know we had discussions on that before, but we never had a discussion on the lot size in our surveys. And we were never given that opportunity to change that. We were only given the change of the DBH of the trees.
Okay.
So, obviously they're talking about 3,000 minimum lot, but a lot of these lots are 0.25, 0.3 acres. So you have all the north side of Eau Claire, all the west side. The newer developments are larger than this. So anytime they build something, there's a tree involved, they're going to get charged or have to do some type of thing just for that. And don't get me wrong. Like I said, I'm not anti-tree in any way, shape, or form. It's just that I think we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot, and we're putting the cart before the horse on some of this stuff. And that's just my opinion there.
Other comments from other commissioners regarding this issue? Commissioner Brewster?
I'm open to some modification based on trying to work through some affordable stuff for low-income developments. I honestly don't. I've been working on other things, and this hasn't been on my plate. But yeah, it's absolutely worth discussing. If there's any tweaks that we can, if you think of it like a mixer, right? You can move some things up and down and get a better result. I don't know if that's possible, but it's certainly worth looking at.
Just to remember that if we do recommend something tonight, it'll go to council for actual approval. So we're functioning as a recommendation tonight on the LDO. Anyone else that wanted to comment on the tree preservation? Commissioner Erickson.
And I think something that gets lost in this, Mr. Bechtold did point it out in his comments, was the fact that if you don't take a tree down, you've probably saved $2,000 on the cost of development. So there are cost savings also by saving a tree. And sometimes there's probably not a way that you can avoid taking down a couple of trees, but the replacement of them in comparison to the cost to take them down is not great. And I think we need to consider the cost savings by designing on lots to avoid taking down trees. And that is a real cost savings in any development. Now, I know it's often easier to develop a piece of property by simply taking down the trees. And that may lead to some savings in the design of the facility or that you're trying to build, the building that you're trying to build, the development you're trying to incorporate. But it doesn't take into consideration the loss of not just the money that it takes to take down the tree, but the future loss to the community in general. And we have to consider that also. And I think we've reached a reasonable balance point with the ordinance as it's proposed. And I would be in favor of maintaining the proposed ordinance. Thank you.
Any further comments? Commissioner Reed?
I just want to acknowledge what some people said earlier about encouraging canopy cover, and this not being the only way to encourage canopy cover. I would be interested to hearing arguments about possible changes, but I also agree with previous speaker.
Commissioner Zoid.
So one thing I have to say on Commissioner Erickson's comment is a lot of people don't have the choice where their tree was in their lot. I didn't plant any of the trees 80 years ago in my lot. I had no say in that, so unfortunately we don't get to choose how the lot is developed, is made. You buy a lot and here's 8 trees sitting in the middle of your lot. How are you supposed to do anything to that lot? And pretty soon we'll find where the city of Altoona and these other places are growing and Eau Claire is shrinking because we have so many regulations put in forth that at some point no one wants to live here anymore, even though, don't get me wrong, we are the fastest growing city, but our outliers are growing faster. And the only way we're doing that is by annexing them in at this point. So I just want to make that comment clear that, I understand what our purpose is, and I agree with a lot of it. It's just whenever you regulate and regulate and regulate, you add cost to everything we do. And, I'm just stating that you're going to have a lot of homeowners that are going to realize this when they need to put a small shed in or something in their house, and they just found out that they're going to be charged all this. Now, Ned, if someone was to cut, I know you have this example here, and I just kind of want to further get to it. So for that 30 inches, or excuse me, the trees there on that example, is there a way for them to plant trees so there is no cost if they remove those trees?
Right, they can meet the mitigation standard if they have available space on the lot, or say if they own a secondary lot and replant there.
So what if they do
So
not
there are
have
alternatives, but if they're locked in, like you said, there's no choice, then there's the fee.
Okay.
So worst case scenario, we paint that picture.
Now, is there ways that, I can't remember everything in this thing, there's so much that we've discussed. Is there a way to plant trees in a different way to donate so that they don't have to if they cannot? I mean, I could just put a pile of trees on the curb and call it good, but I don't think we're solving the purpose. I'm just looking at the most extreme side of it because there are people here that will exactly do what our intentions were for, but they're not the right intentions.
Yeah, so there are mechanisms to plant, to gift those trees to the city, to, work with another friend that might own land. So there are other possibilities besides just paying the fee. But if the lot, say again, is maybe 11,000 square feet, you're pretty tight when it comes to adding maybe a secondary garage or a shed. So there's not a lot of extra room possibly to plant more trees. We say in this example, you're still planting 3 new trees, but as those white pines, if you use that, they need a lot of space to grow over time to get that tall. So again, depends on the type of species that you would replant, but it's just one example. There could be a lot of different possibilities, but.
Thank you. Are you interested in pursuing?
So currently it's 15,000 or is it 10,000 square feet on the ordinance?
It's 10,000.
Okay. So I'm proposing to change it to 15,000 square feet instead of 10,000. You're going to, you're just giving a
Procedurally,
lot
then,
of-
we need a second on that amendment?
Yeah, so if that's an amendment to the main motion, then I'd look to see if somebody would second it, and then discuss and potentially vote on that amendment to the main motion.
Do the initial motioners need to accept the amendment?
No, so once, so if an amendment is brought to the table, it's discussed, voted upon, and a majority were to pass the amendment, then that would apply to the main motion.
Okay. So we have an amendment on the table from Commissioner Zoig.
Correct.
To, could you state your amendment again?
Amend the ordinance on the tree size for the lots that are exempt to 15,000 to 10, from 10,000 to 15,000 square feet.
Is there a second on that amendment? Commissioner Lawson?
I'll give it a second, but I have some questions too.
Okay. Please go ahead.
And I'm going to play my new guy on the commission hat here, but how did we establish the 10,000 square feet? Where did that come from?
That's a great question. That is really the R1 standard, but we see a lot of houses to be at that. It's actually 8,000 square feet, but we bumped it up a little bit more. So the minimum code for the R1 single-family standard is 8,000 square feet. So that's where that came from, 10,000.
So we have an amendment and a second on that amendment on the table here. Is there any further discussion before we vote on the amendment? Any further discussion?
So just so you guys know, the GIS mapping for the city of Eau Claire is in acres and not in square feet. So a 15,000 square foot lot is actually roughly just under 0.35 acres of a lot, which would include neighborhoods that are not here tonight to represent themselves, and then part of the historic neighborhoods that also are between that 0.35 to 0.22 lot size. So it would include the rest of the neighborhoods as well, and not just the smaller lots.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, we will vote. So a yes vote would raise the lot size trigger from 10,000 to 15,000 square feet. A no vote would leave the lot size at 10,000 square feet. I will call the roll. Commissioner Erickson? No. Commissioner Lawson?
Yes.
Commissioner Leonard?
No.
Commissioner Reed?
No.
Commissioner Zoig?
Yes.
Commissioner Brewster?
No.
And Commissioner Helgeson votes yes. That amendment fails by a vote of 4 against and 3 for. Thank you for the consideration on that amendment. We know that Commissioner Brewster, I think this would be the appropriate time if you have amendments. One thing I do want to ask staff is he has 4, I believe he's going to introduce 4 amendments, each one separately and voted on separately. Would that be the correct procedure? Yes.
That would be my hope.
Yes.
All right, so the first one I have is to standardize single homes, twin homes, tri-units, and quad-unit garage projections at a maximum of 15 feet. Right now, they are not all the same. My recollection, although it may be spotty, is that single homes are allowed up to 15, and the twin, tri, and quad units are not. Is that?
They're allowed up to 5 feet projection.
Right. Okay. Yeah, so, wasn't there's one of them, well, anyway, I'm just gonna, I'll find it later. Basically, I'd like to make them so they're all the same at a maximum projection of 15 feet. You know, this is in response to some requests from some affordable housing folks, as well as just like in general, a lot of this is going to be, you know, how do I want to word this delicately? These aren't going to be the neighborhoods in the future that people fight to protect. It's not, you know, stone, it's not houses built out of stone or concrete or anything like that. It's, you know, it's the workforce housing, and one of the reasons that we don't see a lot of that, you know, from 100 years ago around today is it's just not there anymore. And so these are places that need to be affordable because that's who will be living there. And you know, I mentioned on there the efficiencies as a speaker tonight already mentioned the efficiencies for infrastructure, roads, sewer, water mains, because of the increased lot frontage. If the garage and the house have to be next to each other instead of sort of like this, it can be, you can fit more of them along the street. And then, you know, if we're going to build a neighborhood that's supposed to be, you know, more walkable and everything like that, on presumably the outskirts of the city, it would need transit. And right now, we're kind of like not in a place where we can afford to do the expansion of transit that we really need to connect these types of neighborhoods to the core in a walkable transit focused way. So having garages, something that you know, we're still doing on housing, and this allows them to be more built in a more cost-effective way. Obviously not as eloquent as I imagined I would be in my head, but I think you get the idea of what I'm trying to do with this one.
So Commissioner Brewster's amendment is number 1 on the sheet that was handed out. He's making the amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Reed. Any further discussion on this amendment concerning the garage projections? Any, Commissioner Erickson?
I might be convinced that this would be an okay amendment if there was, perhaps, you allow that for a 1-car garage, but not for a 2-car garage or a 3-car garage. If it's less than a 2-car garage, that's only one, you might allow that. That would benefit both the cost of the housing unit, it would benefit the size, width of the housing unit also, so it would allow the housing unit to be built on a narrower lot and a smaller lot that would save money. I could go for something like that. But when you have 2- and 3-car garages, which you see plenty of in twin home developments, and there's room in driveways to park another vehicle, albeit, yes, it would be outside. But these are some of, if you want affordable, truly affordable housing, you build less appurtenant structures, and a garage is an appurtenant structure, whether it's attached or detached. And I think that's where you get more affordability than you do by extending this towards the street. So I would be convinced for something like that, rather than giving it a carte blanche on all of the housing development types up to a 4-unit that you mentioned.
Commissioner Reed.
Thank you, Chair. So just to clarify, you're saying that we should go forward with this, removing the restriction if they, kind of incentivizing them to remove a parking spot. That's what you're saying?
That's correct, and we've done that in the parking requirements for housing developments also. And I think it should apply in a case like this also, yes.
Yeah, I would take that as friendly.
Okay, so, Commissioner Brewster?
Yeah, I'm not gonna say it's not friendly, but I'm not gonna say it's friendly just yet. Let's like to hear some more conversation on it first, if
Okay.
we could come back.
Looks like we're going to get some
Sorry, yeah,
advice.
as far as procedurally, yes. Just to get ahead of that for you, so we have an amendment to the main motion on the table right now. What I'm getting a sense of is that we might be moving to an amendment to the amendment. As far as a Matryoshka doll goes, that's as deep as we go, but I can help to guide through that process if we do wish to amend the amendment at this point. So, but I'll be keeping an eye on that for you.
As of yet, I have not made an amendment to the amendment.
Commissioner Zoig?
So a discussion on that is some units are two-car garages that are split between two residents. So, and I feel like we're starting to restrict more and more of what a home can and cannot have on garages, because they're not required to build at this point, from what I've heard in the past. So they don't need to build a garage. So I think we're adding more and more restrictions on the stuff that we're already restricting on by just having that, because I know people who've lived in twin homes that have a two-car garage, and right side's unit 1 and left side's unit 2, and then we have to get into the decision, what is a one-car garage consist of, and what is a two-car garage? Because not everyone uses their garage for cars as well. I mean, I've seen people who just use them for storage facilities and they park outside. So I think we're getting more and more deeper into something that I don't know if we want to fall down that line for.
Further comments on the amendment? Commissioner Lawson?
Could I just clarify? At my first meeting back in May, I believe a builder stood up when we met over at the Senior Center, and maybe the spokesman from the Builders Association recalls this. Was he speaking in favor that they would rather see the garages out front farther, if I recall correctly? Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Yeah, please approach. Ms. Thrum.
And part of that being because of cost savings in putting the structure up.
Yeah, so most of the twin homes that are built right now are two-car garages with the bulk of the home behind it, because it's the most cost-effective way you can get to a lower price point. When you start looking at having to go where your garage is set only 5 feet in front, then you have to be a wider, so then you're taking up more land and you have to build it differently, you have to restructure it, and it's going to add on cost to the entire project. So that's what we've been requesting, is to get to the initial amendment that Commissioner Brewster had proposed.
Okay, all right, we're good.
Any further discussion on the amendment at hand? Commissioner Reed?
Thank you. Yeah, I'll just say I was originally, before the not proposed amendment, just going to quickly say that this seems like a relatively easy thing to lower restrictions to increase affordability. It has like a tiny minor hit to walkability, but as previous speakers mentioned, there's not a lot of walkability to begin with. So I'd be happy passing it as is.
Commissioner Brewster?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, we are talking about density, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it until this gets passed through council. But the depending on how big of neighborhoods you have with these types of homes, having them be wide on the street versus narrow on the street and narrow lots really does add additional cost to city infrastructure and services. So I just want to keep that in mind as well.
Any further discussion? So the amendment at hand, a yes vote would be to support standardizing the single home, twin home, tri-unit, and quad unit garage projections at a maximum of 15 feet. A no vote would not change the current draft of the LDO. I will call the roll. Commissioner Lawson,
Yes.
Commissioner Leonard,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Zoig,
Yes.
Commissioner Brewster,
Yes.
and Commissioner Erickson.
No.
And Commissioner Helgeson votes aye, so that motion passes by a vote of 6-1 for the amendment to the primary motion, which was approval of agenda item number 5. So agenda item number 5 is now amended to include this 15. I'm sorry. We have the amendment, one of which could be multiple amendments. So are we going to, we will wait through all his amendments before we vote on agenda item 5 to make sure we capture any.
So at this point, the main motion has been amended. I would see it as basically a recommendation to approve the LDO and proposed ordinance changes and repeals with the condition that the subject change be made. So further amendments, we can continue to consider further amendments one at a time, and when you get the full main motion packaged up the way that you would like to consider it, you can bring it up for a recommendation vote at that time.
Okay, I'll ask Commissioner Brewster to state his next amendment.
All right, so the next one, it's a little different than is written on the paper because I was mistaken as to which portion we'd have to be modifying, but I'll read what I worked out with Mr. Noel. So reduce the number of required items off the multi-unit building list from 3 to 2. And so I'm going to quick read what those are. So recess and/or projections in the wall plane with a minimum depth of 2 feet, changes in texture, material, and color of wall surfaces at least every 60 feet. My understanding is that those 2 items are relatively easy to do and that most buildings do that anyway. A pedestrian building pass-through, which while cool is not all that common around here. 8-foot minimum step back of the entire front facade after the ground, second or third floor. 20-foot minimum step back of 30% of the mass of the front facade after the ground floor in a manner that results in a C or U-shaped building. 1-story minimum step down in height on the side or wing of the building. And finally, balconies and or patios included for at least 50% of the number of dwelling units adjacent to an existing or proposed street. And so those are the 7 options on this list. I would be reducing, right now the requirement as listed says that there are 3. You must pick 3 of those things. I would reduce that number to 2.
Could I just ask for clarification in your statement here? Reduce the number of required items. None of these items are required, right?
But you are required to have 3 of them.
Off the checklist. I'm just looking at the wording of this, that we don't actually have required items, but how do we word this to be the correct motion, to not be confusing that we have required items?
Commissioner Brewster is correct to simply reduce 3 to 2.
Yes. Okay.
In what I have highlighted in front of you.
Okay. So reduce the number of required items
from the menu, and the menu was ability to allow the developer to mix and match depending on their particular creative project. I should say that we did walk down the balconies from 75% of total units down to 50% of only street-facing units.
Okay.
So that's a significant reduction, whereas the manual right now says patios and porches are required, does not say how many.
Okay. Just asking for clarification on the correct wording there. So we have this amendment in a motion. Is there a second on this amendment? Commissioner Erickson.
I have a question.
Oh, okay.
For Mr. Noel. It states, apply these requirements to every apartment building, not just when they are built in groups.
Struck that, right? You
Is that not in it?
That's not part of it.
Okay, that's not part of it.
That was from a different, that was
Yep,
from a different
thank you.
section.
Thank you. Thank you for asking.
Melded them in my head in a way that was unprotected.
Is there a second to this amendment?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Commissioner Zoig. Any further discussion on amendment number 2?
If it's all right, I'll just read my blurb for
Yes,
the,
sure,
for the
please,
public.
please do.
So this will simplify code and promote affordability for a type of housing in which many lower-income people and families live. While there are a number of options on the checklist, the most cost-effective third option in most situations is the addition of balconies or patios. Even though they are the most cost-effective, that does not mean they come without added costs that will be passed on to tenants, many of them lower-income folks.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this amendment? Seeing none, I will call the vote on what I call amendment number 2. Again, a yes vote says we'll reduce the number of items from 3 to 2. Commissioner Leonard.
Aye.
Commissioner Reed.
No.
Commissioner Zoig.
Aye.
Commissioner Brewster.
Aye.
Commissioner Erickson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lawson.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. This amendment passes by a vote of 6 to 1. How about your third amendment?
I would like to change the zoning in a portion of the Third Ward neighborhood from NR to GR. Ned, would it be possible to pull up a map for that? Thank you so much. The area to be changed to GR is the area south of Jefferson Street until it dead ends into Gilbert Street, and then south of Gilbert Street from Jefferson Street to the Chippewa River. Chippewa River will serve as the western boundary, with Putnam Park serving as the southern and eastern boundaries.
Clarification, assuming also the university would form a boundary as well there?
So that's not, yeah, I guess it would, right there. But the university isn't GR, so changing its, or NR, so changing its zoning isn't.
Okay. So we're going to hopefully see what you're amending, or have Mr. Noel describe this area.
So I follow. If you follow with me from what his description is, Jefferson Street, can you see that? I know it's hard for folks in the audience. Could you, use the mouse to, or the cursor to kind of like show where that is for everybody? Yeah. So that's a collector, so that's a nice boundary in terms of what on either side NR can work. Or, I'm sorry, for GR, 1 through 4 units could work. So he's drawn it from Jefferson down to where it intersects with Gilbert all the way to the river, correct?
Yes.
Then following the contour of the river, and so minus all of the green parcels, minus all the R3, which is the brown parcels, which he would include the orange parcels and the yellow parcels all along Putnam Creek, or Niagara Creek, Putnam Park, correct? Up into the point of intersection with Jefferson. So is that understood by the commissioners? So essentially taking the NR that's proposed in this area and just making that GR as said described boundary.
I think technically it would be where Putnam Park intersects Harding and then Harding to Jefferson. Because Putnam Park does not intersect with Jefferson.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it does intersect over there, right where Jefferson starts.
It intersects with Harding.
Harding, yeah.
That's not,
Okay.
Jefferson is further to the northwest.
I would consider that amendment friendly.
Okay. So
Good
what is?
catch.
So what is that amended as then?
It's the area he intended, but
Okay.
Describes it more thoroughly.
Okay.
Basically just adding a chunk of Harding as a boundary south of Harding, between where Harding connects with Putnam Park and then Jefferson.
Where Jefferson hits Harding, is it everything south and east of there that's included?
Yeah.
Okay.
I should have had a map. I'm sorry, guys.
Okay, so all of Putnam Drive and those small side streets are all included in your area?
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody. You can bring that up if you want, if that helps.
Yeah, I don't know if that follows the same boundary.
Well, but it might help you, might not be exactly
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Ned.
this is
But
confused.
here, this area would, but anyways,
Yeah.
okay.
No, I think, commissioners, do you understand the boundaries that he's proposed?
Yes, yes.
Just want to make sure everybody understands, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there a second? Oh, you want to read your explanation? Please,
Yeah,
please
if I
proceed.
can, no.
Yes.
This will keep the higher density areas north of Gilbert and Jefferson zoned appropriately while accurately representing most of the rest of the neighborhood. Additionally, the Third Ward Neighborhood Plan was very recently updated with a lot of work from both staff and neighborhood residents, and this keeps the new zoning much closer to that plan. The comprehensive plan update will be beginning soon, and with it the chance for a broader community conversation about what we want our core neighborhoods to look like.
Is there a second on this amendment?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Reed. Any further discussion on this particular amendment? Commissioner Lawson.
I'm not saying I'm for or against at this point, I'm just clarifying. If we change this area, is that going to tie the hands or upset constituents in other neighborhoods by doing this, that we're not being consistent? So I'm just asking opinions, input, and maybe looking at Mr. Noel and some input from staff if that's going to be a pain in the neck.
Yeah, it's a policy decision because, again, you're balancing a lot of different interests. And one of the stated goals is increase housing supply to be able to then help affordability. We've also worked a lot with the neighborhoods to tease out those infill standards, as we talked about, to preserve the way, the form, the parking concerns, all of those different nuances that have made it into that overlay district. Landmark properties are also guided by different rules, so those help preserve some of those historic structures. You need a certificate of appropriateness to tear it down and such, which takes 18 months. So there are some other layering things going on, but ultimately it's a policy decision that is GR or NR appropriate here. You've heard, this has come up multiple times. You've heard from the neighborhoods about this issue. You have voted a couple times. We've met with you. So ultimately you have to make a decision.
And again, the relationship to the comp plan here?
The comp plan in terms of the low density, ZPAC told us to amend the comp plan back before we even started the ordinance creation, back in December of 23 it was, and that was to include 1 through 4 units as the new designation of low density. The only difference between GR and NR is that with the GR, you don't have universally 3 and 4 units. You only have that on collectors and other non-residential properties. And so that's what Commissioner Brewster is proposing here. So you would still have an increase of units, but not as much as what the NR would bring you.
Okay, Commissioner Brewster?
Yeah, one other thing just to mention, and perhaps Assistant City Attorney Herbison could correct me if I'm wrong, but once a property right has been granted, it's very, very difficult to claw back on, and is my understanding. And so my thought is, if we start out this chunk of the neighborhood with with GR, there is some opportunities for NR along the collector routes. We can see what that kind of development looks like. If it turns out that it's very benign and you know, being done in a way that adds to the neighborhood instead of detracts from it, then maybe, you know, a couple years down the road, it'll be worth exploring, maybe increasing some more areas to be NR. I don't know. That might be a question for the next plan commission or council to look at. Also, there's kind of a dynamic shift going on with regards to student housing and university proximity. You know, we've heard some people from Randall Park talk about it. It's also, I live in the 3rd Ward, and it's also going on there. Seeing a lot of places that used to be student rentals becoming rentals for families. Pretty, at least what many of them likely low income. And so, you know, we have declining enrollment at the university, and as well as a massive increase in potential student housing. And so it's, you know, I think it would be worth holding off a little bit more, and then having more data and experience to go on for when we look at this with the Eau Claire Comprehensive Plan update. And then we'd have probably a better idea of what might be necessary and what's being utilized appropriately.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Erickson.
Perhaps staff could address, within the area proposed change, I believe State and Summit are collectors or above collectors? Correct. And those would be the only ones?
Farwell.
Farwell? Farwell to Gilbert, or where would Farwell?
Yeah, the map shows the collectors. It's a little hard to read, but you got Jefferson, right? So that is introduced, and then down to Farwell, which tees into Gilbert there.
Okay.
Gilbert's not a collector,
Okay,
but then
so-
one block
so that portion
south
of
is
Farwell
Summit
to Gilbert
that feeds
would
into
be-
Lake.
Yeah, okay. So those
And then you have
three.
State as well. And
Those
that provides
three-
that connectivity for routes through.
Right. Those 3 streets within the area proposed.
As proposed as amended.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Zoig.
So, Chairperson, thank you. So, what Chairman Brewster, I'm trying to Commissioner, sorry, I can't talk right now. It's getting late. So this plan is to hold off making this a more high density per se neighborhood and then giving that opportunity that if 25 years down the road, this area sees the need for a higher density building, we can increase that to an R, is it the second level, like an R3 per se, or am I correct on that? We can go up, but we can't go down?
Yeah, I think the approach, correct me if I'm wrong, but is to incrementally phase in added density. See how it goes. If it's not that much of an issue, then possibly to relook at it, talk about it more at the comprehensive plan level, which is coming up next year. So more of a phased, less risky approach, if you will, versus right away going all NR.
Okay, so in 30 years, we can change this to something else if we need to at that point?
So I'm hearing questions that would relate to what would be referred to as a down zoning later on. So that would be a reduction in basically the usable or the rights of use in the property. So that is technically a possibility. You can go through a down zoning. It does have a higher voting requirement at the council level currently. But of course, when you downzone if for instance, if it were to downzone a large swath of land, you could potentially create new nonconformities, and some other kind of tricky issues that can come along with downzonings. But it is very much possible to downzone. It is also possible to lift up and amend a zoning area and adjust the districts.
So rezoning it to an, I was thinking these two mixed up. NR, yeah, NR would be what can be easier done than downzoning, correct?
So currently it's proposed as to update to an NR. The amendment would then request that the current proposal would be reduced to a GR district. You can go back and forth over time, but GR would be, I guess, the most restrictive. GR would be the most restrictive to start at this point in time, and if you were to move it up to an NR, you could create some additional rights to land at a later time. Or if it's the commission's preference to start at the NR route, that's how the ordinance is currently proposed, or how the new zoning map is currently proposed. So as far as case law is concerned, there's not a property right in a zoning designation, and there are mechanisms for downzoning and upzoning, but just given the nature of development over time, it can be more difficult to implement downzonings based on the way that areas have developed over time.
Thank you.
Does that help? Does that?
Yeah,
Okay.
so going for this, I mean, I'm kind of in favor of Brewster's amendment for the fact that, I don't know, we don't know what's going to be 50 years down the road if things change in the third ward. It's a century code update, it's 100 years. We don't predict the years, and I don't think any of us in this room will even be here at that time. If so, awesome. But, like I said, I approve moving this amendment.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Commissioner Reed.
Thanks, Chair. I have a few things that I want to ask. The first one is for Planner Noel. I am interested to know if these amendments are in line with our comprehensive plan, in your opinion.
Yeah, the comprehensive plan adopts some neighborhood plans, as Mr. Habel had spoken about. So in order to with this low-density new designation that is proposed of the LDO, you do have to amend the comp plan, which is your next item after that. But that's universal across the whole city. It doesn't pertain to a particular neighborhood. So we need to amend that just for the sake of that. Are you asking for this particular amendment here?
So I guess I'll cut to the chase.
Okay.
So what I'm asking is, and first I want to acknowledge that I'm new. I wasn't here for 2.5 years. Some of you were, but I want to acknowledge that a lot of community members spoke today, and they said a lot of things. And so I'm trying to understand where the disconnect is, because their neighborhood plans are in our comprehensive plan, and we have had all these meetings. So I'm just a little confused as to where this disconnect in communication
It's a great question. So in the analysis that we've had earlier on before you were on council, ZPAC members evaluated that, looked at the goals, increased housing supply, and that was a big driver of the upzonings, if you will, with GR and NR. In the end, multiple meetings, the neighborhood representatives have been at the table, have heard these concerns. We have had ZPAC members vote, give direction to staff multiple times, and that's what you have before you in terms of what's proposed. The latest was a vote on May 5th. We asked ZPAC members, do you want to reassess the GR or the NR situation in these two neighborhoods? The majority, I think it was 73%, said no. So you've been telling us, you've been listening. It was inaccurate that the gentleman that talked about staff hasn't been listening to the public. That those comments have been brought to you, and ZPAC time and time again has said, no, we're going to stick with NR. It's an equity issue in these other older neighborhoods because it is more mixed housing. So if a stated goal is to increase housing supply, that's what's been driving a lot of why this is NR. But ultimately, again, it's a policy decision between you as a recommendation body and city council.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
I have more if you want to
No, thank you for that background. I'm not going to support this amendment, simply because, as you stated, this has been through ZPAC several times. 73% of the 22 members or whatever supported the NR in this case, correct?
That's what, when we asked you
Right,
guys to vote
right,
real
right.
time, those neighborhoods,
Yeah.
they had a chance to speak before you.
Yeah.
You voted as a collective body. So this is your opportunity now tonight to decide what you want to do as a plan commission.
And again, that doesn't mean the city council can't make their own considerations on this, regardless of how we vote here. So, Commissioner Brewster.
Yeah, I just want to respond to that a little bit. I know that the meetings that we had, the CPAC meetings, there was a lot of people, and you had to cram a ton of stuff into a very short amount of time. And we didn't really get a chance to discuss things, between ourselves, right? And so, while I, respect the direction that you got from those, I guess I would have liked to see, as somebody that doesn't get bored at 5-hour meetings like some people do, I would have rather had us have, more discussion about that before giving you direction, because I didn't feel like there was sufficient opportunity to make cases in one way or another, or we might have, we might have done things differently. And, once again, it's not a criticism. I know you had limited time to work with, and there are many people that don't like 5-hour meetings. So,
Commissioner Erickson.
I'm concerned that by carving out 2 neighborhoods, and essentially, if we choose this neighborhood, then why not the next, which is Randall Park neighborhood? We're putting there's a lot of housing units in these 2 neighborhoods combined, and we're putting a pretty big weight then on our efforts to promote affordability across the entire community. And then also, you look at the equity between these 2 neighborhoods versus East Side Hill neighborhood, West Side neighborhood, North Side neighborhood. I mean, what would be the reasoning then not to apply it to all the neighborhoods and then really put a big crimper on our efforts towards more affordability?
Commissioner Brewster.
actually, most of the city is already Zone GR. Is it not? I mean, many of the neighborhoods that you listed are already Zone GR. East Side Hill is not.
Would you like to see a zoning map? Does that help?
Sure. That'd be great if you have one. Yeah, the East Side Hill is, or at least most of it, I don't remember exactly, is currently also projected to be NR, as well as, I believe, North Riverfronts. I don't remember all of them, but basically big swaths of the older neighborhoods. The Planets, most of the South Side, Putnam Heights is not.
It would, these are also our densest neighborhoods that also contain the most housing units per acre.
Yeah.
And that already contains some of the more affordable housing in the city. So I just think it'd be a disproportionate hit on our efforts for affordability.
If I could respond.
Sure, please.
Yeah, and so the big issue that, if you can look at the map now, the light yellow is GR, is projected to be GR, and the sort of goldenrod down in the core. I don't know if you can see the difference from here. But anyway, what I was going to say is, we have we talk about affordability as, 80% CMI and 60% CMI, but there are people that can afford even less, like 40% CMI. And it is virtually impossible today without subsidy to build housing that's affordable for 40% CMI. But Randall Park has it already because the houses are old and, a lot of them don't have the maintenance that they probably should have. I've had some discussions with Kurt Paulson, who's a professor of urban planning at UW-Madison, and without driving him around the neighborhood, I described it, and his thought was that tearing down some of the most affordable housing in the city to build more stuff that is slightly less affordable really doesn't help the people that are 40% CMI or lower. And so we have many opportunities all over the city, including in these neighborhoods, to increase density by lot splitting and things like that, without tearing down what's there to build, fourplexes and things of that nature. Personally, I would love to see, everybody be able to live in a core neighborhood, be able to walk downtown, hit the bike trails really easily, whatever, but it's just kind of not possible. We have a multitude of different neighborhood styles and stuff for people with different lifestyles. The people that find themselves in the downtown neighborhood do so because they either need to and by downtown neighborhood, I guess, we're sort of, I'm also sort of making the case for the Randall Park amendment right now too, but there's a lot of housing in the third ward that is really nice and kind of pricey, but there's also a fair amount that, is the housing for people that are in that 40% CMI category. So that's one of the reasons that this is something that I was interested in doing.
Any further comments? Commissioner Zoig.
I have one comment. I just need to get some clarification. Mr. Knoll, if you have a chance. So in GR, it says the district is also intended to accommodate middle density infill development in select locations, join higher density neighborhoods and along collector roads. My first question is, what is middle density development? And then second, in this proposed area that Commissioner Brewster is for the amendment, are there any collector streets in this section?
For the third ward?
Correct.
Yeah, I outlined those before. So Jefferson is a collector. Farwell, Summit, State.
Probably Washington.
Yeah, but that's not in your amendment. That's higher density. Right. Yep. Does that help, or do you need the map?
Yeah, so technically, middle density could still be built down Summit.
Yes,
Jefferson.
that's 2 through 4 units.
Yep, so there still is the capability of developing this more under the GR, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Reed.
Thank you. I will just say that I find this neighborhood to be has the most opportunity in our whole city, like a previous speaker said, and I really, we're talking about 40% CMI, 60% CMI, 80% CMI, but yeah, I just can't get around. If we're really committed to affordable housing, I feel like we need to keep it the way it's currently proposed. So,
Any further comments? So before I call a vote, a yes vote would be to approve the change of zoning in the portion of the third ward as previously described from NR to GR. A no vote would be to retain the proposed zoning as NR. I will call the roll. Commissioner Reed,
No.
Commissioner Zoig,
Yes.
Commissioner Brewster,
Yes.
Commissioner Erickson,
No.
Commissioner Lawson,
No.
Commissioner Leonard,
No.
and Commissioner Helgeson votes no. That motion fails on a vote of two yes and 5 noes. Let's continue on with one more amendment from Commissioner Brewster.
All right. It's basically the same arguments, but slightly different. For the Randall Park, changing Randall Park from NR to GR with the northern boundary. The GR will be being Fulton Street. The southern boundary will be Niagara Street. Eastern and western boundaries will be the Chippewa River and Half Moon Lake, respectively. And if I could read my little blurb.
Yes, please.
The Randall Park neighborhood is a unique situation compared to most neighborhoods in Eau Claire. A majority of its housing is rentals, and a majority of those rentals are student rentals. Many of the rentals need work, and many of those are approaching affordable for residents in some of the lowest income brackets. It's also a neighborhood where affordable starter homes can be found for moderate income home buyers. There's certainly a need for neighborhood revitalization in the Randall Park neighborhood, but we have limited housing stock affordable to those making 40% CMI, and many houses in Randall Park hit that price point. It's virtually impossible to build new housing affordable to CMI renters without government subsidy, and even then it's very challenging and expensive. There's value in preserving existing housing stock in Randall Park until our low-income housing stock starts approaching where we need it to be.
Thank you. So we have a amendment proposed by Commissioner Brewster. Is there a second to this amendment as described?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Zoig is the second. Any further discussion on the amendment, again, to change a portion of the Randall Park neighborhood from NR to GR? Could I ask Mr. Noel or Jackie to comment on the ZPAC discussions on this item? How we got to where we are today
Yeah.
for Randall Park?
Yeah. So good question. Randall Park was originally in 1923, 100 years ago, right, plus, zoned high-density residential, which allowed a lot of different range of different housing units, right? So you see the characteristics of the different types of units within, much more scattered than what we looked at with Third Ward. So within that core area, there's that R2 zoning, and that is what was proposed to be an R. And Commissioner Brewster's amendment proposes for that to be reduced to GR, much similar to with the Third Ward, which you've voted on. This one, the composite nature has a lot more sixplexes, 5, 4. There's a lot of duplexes as well. But to kind of paint the picture in terms of that area, everybody understand his boundaries. Just want to make sure this one's a little.
Would you like to show that on a map if possible, or?
So, yeah, so I believe I understand it, but just to make sure that, okay, so Fulton, which is the northern boundary of the neighborhood, how it kind of bends and then straightens out, that's Fulton. So this would all be R2, correct, Mr. Brewster? R2 zoning that's proposed to be NR, right? All NR as proposed?
Yeah.
All the properties that are NR, and it follows the Half Moon Lake. So again, all NR properties, and then down to Niagara, and then across all the way to the Chippewa River, and then back up along the river to the point of beginning. So all the properties that are proposed NR in that area are proposed to be GR in his amendment.
Is Niagara 1 block or 2 blocks north of water?
It is 2, yeah. So there's a buffer that would still remain NR.
south of
And
Niagara.
we can pull up a different.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So the orange parcels that are zoned R2 today would default to the NR. And you can see where there's Chippewa, the Niagara. So it'd be 2 up from Water Street. The gray parcels would be, they're RM right now, so they would translate into MR for the new code.
And kind of, can you give me that, how we arrived here through ZPAC at this point?
Right, again, back to that other map we just showed you earlier, a much more scattered effect of different housing units rather than kind of the 1 and 2 in that bulk area of Third Ward. The original zoning was actually high density, so you had that perpetuate over time. You have some apartments built in there as well. Some of those are actually zoned R4 along 5th Street, the old, I believe it was Lincoln Elementary. So that would be excluded from his amendment. Only the things that are proposed as NR.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Noel? Any questions? Commissioner Reed?
Yeah, so one thing that is consistent in these 2 amendments is that we want to preserve existing housing stock, especially for people at 40% of the CMI. Can you say, in your opinion, will these amendments actually prevent, the destruction of these houses and preserve the existing housing stock?
Yeah, it's a market decision in terms of, an existing homeowner that wants to, improve their properties or sell. What the new code allows is more choices, basically, that instead of, yeah, go ahead.
So currently, as you can see in the red parcels and the light blue parcels, those are 3 and 4 unit homes that are currently considered non-conforming, which means that a property owner can't reinvest more than a certain amount of the value of the home before they would have to convert it into something that is conforming. So with the current zoning and with the proposed GR zoning, it would limit potential reinvestment in those existing affordable homes to help keep them around as affordable units for longer and to maintain them to the level where they are more adequate and more suitable for housing people.
Yes, I'm fully aware of the public safety in the Randall Park area. I live there myself. So, but thank you. So it sounds like what you're saying is that by passing these amendments, it would actually do the opposite of what we want.
In some instances, yes, it would, because of the restrictions on reinvestment in existing housing. I think the residents' concerns about single-family homes and the potential to developer to profit from tearing an existing single-family home down and building a quadplex, that is a founded concern. But I do think with the built-out nature of the area and the existing housing stock, there isn't a lot of case study to say that that's going to happen in, it's going to be, all over the place. Every single family home is going to be knocked down. So I think the potential to reinvest in existing triplexes and quadplexes that are the most affordable units in this part of the city, you all have to weigh in terms of whether that's more of a benefit than the potential loss of single-family homes in the neighborhood.
Do you recall how much support this got from ZPAC to zone it NR?
Yeah, so it was the same percentage of ZPAC members who supported. We were looking at the kind of downtown historic core neighborhoods cumulatively, and there was very strong support for maintaining the zoning here as NR, and there was also support for kind of getting rid of the GR district in general throughout the city and making everything NR. So we kind of struck that middle ground and kept this more historic part of the city as NR, really to reflect the existing mix of housing in these neighborhoods and to so in the past, the city had downzoned these neighborhoods. Originally, this housing was allowed. It was legally established. The city decided that wasn't appropriate moving forward, so they were downzoned. So this would just be kind of upzoning them back to what they were originally allowed to be developed as.
Any further questions for staff on this? Commissioner Erickson.
Could staff outline again the collectors or arterials in the proposed change?
Fifth and Lake, for sure.
So the blue parcels on this map are parcels that are adjacent to those roadways, so the collectors, principal arterials or minor arterials, and then the purple or pink parcels are those that would be adjacent to the higher density zoning districts. So if these areas were to be rezoned to the GR district, these are the parcels that would be eligible for a 3 or 4 unit development.
Essentially, we have Lake Street and Fifth. Is that correct?
Correct.
Commissioner Brewster.
This is a question for staff. Have you come across anybody at all in Randall Park that hasn't been able to upgrade their building because of the non-conforming restrictions? Because that's not at all my understanding of why people don't upgrade their buildings in Randall Park.
Yeah, so we do have people not able to actually upgrade their buildings. A gentleman was gonna, I believe, I don't know if he's here tonight or not, but he's a landlord and is stuck with a single-family house that he basically can make into a duplex, but he's not able to meet some of the setback rules. He actually has the zoning of R2, but he's not able to upgrade it. So that's one example in terms of just a simple change that could actually work for him. But so we do have that in terms of projects that they want to reinvest in. To Jackie's point, state law says that you can't reinvest in these properties more than 50% because it's a non-conforming use. So those properties will continue to deteriorate if they're still using that R2 zoning and they're a triplex quad that don't meet that GR standard.
Yes.
And so everything over a 4 that's in Randall Park, that's gonna happen to anyway, right? The
In terms of-
5s, the 6, this is the 7s, everything.
Yeah, so some of them, yeah, they're still gonna have that issue, right? I mean, so there could be a case, remember this was zoned high density originally. So the down zoning really went one direction. This is a modest increase in terms of the NR. One could make the case to even go up to an MR in certain areas.
Any further questions? Commissioner Zoig.
On that note, can they apply to be an MR zone?
Yeah, somebody can
later?
always petition to rezone.
Okay.
It needs to be consistent with the comp plan.
Well, this is one where I can't support the amendment based on the overwhelming support of ZPAC in this case and the description, what staff has described in this case. Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, a yes vote would change the zoning on the portion that was described from NR to GR. A no vote would retain the proposed NR district. Commissioner Zoig.
No.
Commissioner Brewster.
Yes.
Commissioner Erickson.
No.
Commissioner Lawson.
No.
Commissioner Leonard.
No.
Commissioner Reed.
No.
And Commissioner Helgeson votes no. That motion fails. 1 vote for, 6 votes against. So we finished, this was the complete list of amendments, correct? So we have 2 amendments that made it through that were passed. One in regard to the 15-foot garage projections, and the other one regarding the number of required items off the multi-unit building checklist, reducing that from 3 to 2. So those amendments passed. So those will be added on to our primary motion, correct?
Yes, that's right. So the original motion was to recommend for approval the zoning I guess the whole item here, and that original motion has been amended to include the the addition of the garages and,
Yes.
so those will, so, a recommendation, including a recommendation for these amendments, basically.
Yes. Okay, so we have the initial motion and a second, and we have the two proposed amendments that passed. So our vote today will be on that initial motion to approve this regular agenda item with the two amendment updates. I will call, any further discussion on that? I will call the vote. Commissioner Brewster.
Yes.
Commissioner Erickson. Yes. Commissioner Lawson.
Yes.
Commissioner Leonard.
Yes.
Commissioner Reed.
Yes.
Commissioner Zoig.
Yes.
And Commissioner Helgeson votes aye. That motion passes 7-0 for recommendation to the City Council. We move on to our next agenda item, which is also item number 6, which is also a public hearing in regard to rezoning for the Century Code update. And Mr. Noel will start us off.
Okay, this is the second item related to the LDO. I had noted that when we started to begin this work, we looked at the comprehensive plan. Again, the comprehensive plan laid out a lot of these different strategies that the current zoning is inconsistent with in terms of some of that upzoning ideas, reducing nonconformities to allow reinvestment, adding more housing choices and so forth. So, you know, along with ZPAC, the whole way we've been introducing these comp plan policies for consideration. Tree preservation is another one and so forth, getting your input and direction as we formulated the code. So as it relates to the 1 through 4 unit, looking at expanding that low density category from 1 to 2 currently to 1 to 4 in alignment with what you just passed with the NR and the GR type zoning districts, which are basically our new low density zoning. In many ways, these type structures can look like a single family house. They may be larger, they may be even smaller than a single family house. So again, we just talked about that with the ZPAC direction and how we need to align it with the actual text, not the map change. The map change will be something more to look at with the update of the comp plan in the near future. But we proposed in the table, the land use description categories, and the big change here is the low density is just adding the language in green, which adds that 1 to 4 units instead of just 1 to 2 to keep it consistent. We've noted the different new zoning districts, which ones pertain to those categories. So rename them from R1 to GR, from R2 to basic NR, and so on, all the way down the line, you know, with commercial and industrial districts so that everything's consistent with the LDO that you just recommended. So I can go over any of that stuff, but basically this is a public hearing. Happy to answer any of your questions.
Questions for Mr. Noel? Commissioner Brewster.
Yeah, I was just wondering if, I know we've spoken about this previously, but I was wondering if you could, you know, talk about this a little bit for people listening at home. Given how important the comprehensive plan is for the city, why was it done in this order? Where we were going to be making these changes without the sort of community conversations that took place last time for the comprehensive plan? Because I was part of that, as were many other people. And it just seems like we're rushing forward on something that could wait a year or two, and it wouldn't be the end of the world, because that's how things have been. And just why this was done both in this order, and, you know, we could also have got the zoning stuff ready to go and be like, hey, this is what we're looking at doing for the comp plan. What do what does the community think about this as a whole? And then, you know, wait until that process is done and approve both of those together, instead of changing it now and then, you know, having a conversation that is basically So we did this before, we changed it, now what do you want? You know what I mean?
Right.
You could
And,
speak on
and that's, thank you for the question. And that's why we've done such robust community engagement on the front end, meeting with stakeholders, open houses, the public meetings with the ZPAC. We had the technical group, just to make sure we had a lot of the buy-in, even if people disagreed. You know, you've heard that tonight. We've always kind of talked internally that if we can come up with a code that probably gets 75% of the wins, you know, so be it. We're not every stakeholder group's going to be able to be happy about the whole thing, but overall, you know, we're trying to craft policy with you per your direction. Turn it over to the director.
I would add in, part of this was a fiscal issue. This isn't a very expensive process. We would not have had the budget to do this without ARPA funds. ARPA funds have a very defined timeline. We had to have them spent and committed under contract before last year. We would not have been able to do the comprehensive plan and then do the zoning plan in that order. So a lot of it was driven by the ability to fund this through ARPA.
Thank you, Mr. White.
I'll just add too on that is, so we did amend the comp plan in 2022, and that's where some of the new policy language came in about reducing nonconformities, looking at upzoning areas as well. And so we did have direction with the update in 22, which is more of a minor update. You'll have a large update coming up here in 26.
Thank you, Mr. Noel. Any questions from the commissioners on agenda item 6? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on this item. Pardon me? Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Thank you. This is a public hearing, so if anybody would like to speak on this item, agenda item 6, please come forward. State your name. Oh. State your name, address, and spell your last name.
My name is Jeff DeGrave, last name Degrave. My address is 133 Lake Street in the historic Randall Park neighborhood. I just wanted to follow up on what Commissioner Brewster just mentioned about community engagement and public contributions and input. And again, I want to make sure I didn't misspeak earlier, but again, nothing has been noted so far that says we listened to the neighborhood. Yes, there was plenty of information shared, there were discussions, there were meetings, as Mr. Brewster has explained, with ZPAC and all of that. But just because people present a case or are able to make their voice heard, it doesn't mean it's listened to, right? And so I want to make a very clear distinction that although we have public input meetings, it doesn't mean that input is considered significantly or seriously. And once again, it goes back to the city council and city staff work together with the community. And so I want to clarify what I meant was, yes, there was input that was welcomed, I guess you might say, and encouraged, but whether that was listened to, there is no evidence. No one has mentioned tonight. We spoke with Randall Park. We spoke with Third Ward, and these are the changes we made based on what the community has said. Yes, ZPAC can vote however they want to, but that doesn't mean that they're on the neighborhood commission. It doesn't mean they're on the neighborhood steering committee. It doesn't mean that they were part of the discussions for the city comprehensive plan for those particular neighborhoods. So unless you're actually reporting that you have received and heard local people and identify those changes, there is no indication that any of those voices were ever heard or taken seriously or that their input has ended up in this plan. So I just wanted to clarify that and also to support Mr. Brewster's comments. Thank you.
Questions for Mr. DeGrave? Seeing none, thank you, sir. Could staff comment on the outreach to the neighborhoods?
So So yes, we did significant community outreach. Staff led a lot of neighborhood meetings with these more core downtown historic neighborhoods, and it did lead to the proposed establishment of the residential infill overlay district. So that was in direct response to the neighbors' concerns about the potential for 2-unit, 3-unit, 4-unit dwellings and changing the character of the neighborhood. So the residential infill overlay district has standards to ensure that the orientation of buildings, the roof line, the type of roof that is used, how parking is situated on the lot are all consistent with existing development in those neighborhoods. We also have the list of quality enhancements that a number have to be chosen from, and that list was derived directly from the neighborhood plans and the features, architectural features that these plans call out as significant within the neighborhoods and really contributing to that historic character of those neighborhoods. So there was significant community input that went into the creation of that overlay district. Certainly understand that we didn't incorporate all of the changes that the neighborhood was advocating for. I think the Zoning Policy Advisory Committee really did kind of battle with themselves with that decision in terms of how do you weigh these various goals that the city has in terms of zoning for what's on the ground today, increasing the type of diversity of housing and the affordability of housing in the city with the desires of the neighborhood residents. So I do think that was a topic that was discussed at length at our ZPAC meetings, and then ultimately as the policymakers for the city, the votes went to maintain that NR zoning and to consider these changes to the comprehensive plan.
Questions for Ms. Berg? Thank you, Ms. Berg. Would anyone else like to speak on agenda item 6? This is a public hearing. If you'd like to speak on this item, please come forward. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing portion of agenda item 6, and the chair would entertain a motion on agenda item 6.
A motion to approve item 6.
We have a motion to approve, and Commissioner Erickson.
Second.
And a second by Commissioner Erickson. Any further discussion on agenda item 6, the rezoning Century Code update? Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to call the vote. Commissioner Brewster.
No.
Commissioner Erickson.
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson.
Yes.
Commissioner Leonard.
Yes.
Commissioner Reed.
Yes.
Commissioner Zoig.
Yes.
And Commissioner Helgeson votes yes. That recommendation passes 6 votes to 1. Thank you for everybody that spoke here tonight. We will move on to agenda item 7, which is future agenda items and announcements.
Yeah, really nothing for you. Your next Plan Commission meeting on July 14th will have a number of site plans and conditional use permits for you to consider. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. We are adjourned. Yeah. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
too.
Well, I will see you guys in July.
That's not bad. I thought it might go 10, yeah, so.
Yeah, good job, guys. It's a lot.
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah. Well, have a great evening and see you
Right, I suppose. Getting dramatic over here. Yeah, that's good. I don't know. Anyways, I'm fried. Have a good night, yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
Is this yours?
No, it's not.
Of course, I always leave it going.
All right.
I do regret drinking it.
Staff here. All right. Thank you for the timekeeping and advice, appreciate it.
Way to hang in there today.
All right, which bar are we going to?
Hey, we're saving that for after the council meeting. So, for which one?
For third ward for the boundaries. I just think motion it wasn't exactly clear.
Yeah, add Harding into it.
Like,
Yeah, the intersection with Flint Jefferson. It was clear in mine, yeah, it failed, but, yeah, I mean, you could just add, where it says Niagara Creek or Putnam, I think it is, one of the two, to intersect with Harding Avenue. Right after where it says Putnam or Niagara or whatever, Chippewa.
area to be changed to GR area south of Jefferson Street until it's dead end to Gilbert Street, and then south of Gilbert Street from Jefferson Street to the Chippewa River. All good still? The Chippewa River will serve as the western boundary with Putnam Park serving as the southern and eastern boundary.
Yep.
Where do we add?
After that, after Putnam,
With Putnam Park
to Harding Avenue.
to Hardy Avenue. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, all I got out of that was, oh, I should
Should have had it in that.
change the recorder to Chopper.
I can.
Oh, you did it, somebody did it, all right.
Well, I shut off the live, but I couldn't get the actual recording.
Oh.
Shut off still.
You,
Yeah, because it went black.